After 4 rounds of grueling races, there is yet one more to go. Many are still in contention for the championship, and as the series has proven, nothing can be taken for granted. 3 hours is a long time, and there are many factors that are outside of the driver's control. Who has the wherewithal and speed to take the win today? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 5 of the Majors Team Endurance Challenge, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Syandra and Joey Tebben. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The Nurburgring's Grand Prix course plays host to our finale this afternoon. Let's head to our track guide to find out what it has in store for our competitors. Welcome to the Nurburgring. Often overshadowed by its older, bigger brother, the Nordschleife, the Grand Prix course has actually accrued quite a bit of history itself. This modern circuit was built in the early 80s as a replacement for the lesser-known Southern Loop. And while it was updated and extended in 2002, it stayed roughly 3 miles in length throughout its history. However, the addition of the Mercedes Arena brought about a total of 6 different layouts to choose from, with the longest including 16 turns. Though not as fearsome as the Ring, it's technically challenging and carries its own fair share of elevation change. Plus, the types of corners come in a wide variety, ranging from the heavy braking into the sharp hairpin of the first turn, to the swift Schumacher S, which is still not quite flat out in a lot of modern cars. Passing can sometimes come at a premium, and drivers are often forced to get creative if they find themselves stuck behind a competitor. But the difficulty that elicits mistakes means that patience can pay off for those who stay diligent. While Formula One raced here on and off for a few decades, it now mainly hosts GT and touring car racing, along with some lower-tier open-wheel series. In the end, race fans certainly shouldn't overlook the importance of this German circuit. While it may not carry the fame of its counterpart, it holds up well and helps keep this worldwide phenomenon relevant to modern racing. Well, Cy, it may not be the Nordschleife, but from what I can tell, it seems like this place will still be a challenge for our drivers.
Absolutely. This track does not have that many good passing opportunities for the multi-class. Every corner seems to be a mid-speed or kind of a high-speed sweeper, and we know how GT cars and LMP2s like that combination.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And you can see a little bit of info about the version that they are going to be running here today. Now, it is the season finale, so let's take a look at the championship. Starting off with the prototypes, it's probably the least close of all 3 of our championships, but still definitely within range. A win gets you 46 points. So you can see all the way down to 4th, they are still mathematically eligible, but it's going to be very difficult for some of them to manage to take it. Honestly, the main fight is between the Fitzstye Aries and Fitzstye Athena teams up in 1st and 2nd place. Cy, what about the GTEs? Those look pretty close from what I saw.
Absolutely. We have actually 6 teams that are mathematically possible to take the championship tonight, and almost all of them are qualified very well today. First, we have the Calvert Dynamics Bombshell Racing team in the lead with 144 points, and only 1 point behind we have the Evolve Synsports Titanium, and tied with them is it's not shown on the graphics, but tied with them is on the TechSense Fitzy Motorsport Hades team, tied with them at 143 points. Behind them is the Mach 1 Esports team. In 5th place is Sector 5 Wild Blue Yonder, and then in 6th place is Friction Racing. Unfortunately, the graphics doesn't seem to show the tie correctly.
And Joey, what about our GT4 class down at the bottom? Not as many cars have been showing up, but it does look like it's staying tight there.
Well, you can see on the graphic 2 Missed Apex F1 podcast teams. They are not here today, so we won't have to worry about them in our calculations, but the Grid Life Bombshell CMS Team Race 1 is here, and CMSRacing.com Team 2 are here. So they will be in a heated battle throughout this race. With only 17 points between them, anything's possible, and it's anyone's championship.
Now, it's not just anybody's race, though, as let's take a look at the race details. As we mentioned, the finale for the season. And there you've got 3 different cars that the different classes, I should say, that they can choose from: LMP2s, the GTEs, and the GT4s. It is a 3-hour race, as it has been in every round this season. It is open setup, which will be important, especially at a track for some of those high downforce cars like the LMP2s that really get those things dialed in. And caution flags are on. Now, if you're new to the Majors Team Endurance Challenge, it's going to be a little bit different than what you're used to. Instead of just watching for individual incidents, the stewards determine a number of incidents that will be racked up by the entirety of the field. Once it reaches that number, a caution flag will be thrown, and then it will reset to 0 and count back up to that number again. So we could have one caution, we could have no cautions. It's however many times drivers rack up those incidents. That includes all the off tracks, all of the car contact spins, and what have you. And so far, it's actually been not too bad lately. It's cleaned up significantly since the start. So we'll see if we get a caution today with so few cars out on track, as it looks like, speaking of few cars on track, nobody has qualifying times left to put in. So I'll turn to you, Sai, that I know you've got quite a bit of experience, especially with prototype cars. I mean, what do you see being some of the big challenges for them, especially in navigating some of that traffic out there?
Well, admittedly, I don't have experience racing GT4s in LMP2, but with how big the pace gap is, the GT4s in qualifying are doing about 2-minute 2 lap times, and the prototypes are doing 1-minute 41s. So that's about a 20-second delta per lap between those two classes. And the GT4s are not known for their downforce, so they're going to have to be tiptoeing around some of those medium speed corners I was talking about, and those LMP2s are going to gain very, very quickly. If those GT4s stay bunched together, it could cause issues for the lead LMP2s and could allow for the trailing LMP2s, sort of third, fourth, fifth on back, to bunch up again.
So something certainly to think about. As we mentioned, it is quite a long race. You can see it's quite early in the morning too, but that's just for this qualifying session. Almost 8 a.m. virtual standard time right now, and as such, it's quite cool at 67 Fahrenheit on the track surface. We'll see how that changes once they get into the race session. Joey, the other thing that I worry about, I mean, since it is an endurance race and pit stop strategy will play a certain part of it, I always worry looking at this place on that pit entry that somebody is going to embarrass themselves.
I mean, it's iRacing, it's a 3-hour race, and even when we've only got 28 cars, there's pretty much guaranteed going to be somebody who will embarrass themselves. But it is a difficult pit entry. It might be more than one driver who ends up just clonking that outside wall. But I think every driver is going to be just thinking, just take it easy. If we lose like a second just trying to tiptoe it into the pits, it'll be okay. It's better than getting damage repaired.
Now, as far as that strategy goes, the class, as we've seen all season, with the shortest of the pit windows is those LMP2s. Sai, I know you do a lot of work behind the scenes with your teams trying to get those ready. Without divulging too much, is there any theories or thoughts that you have on that?
So we know around this track, the LMP2s have a fuel for about 40 minutes of racing, and that's not including any pace laps or such, so I'm expecting the first stint to be a little bit shorter. But with how cold the track is and how much fuel they're going to be burning because of that, I'm expecting them to need to do about 4.5 stints to complete 3 hours here. But that's not accounting for any yellow flags or full course yellows. So if they get one, they could make it so that they only have to do 4 stints if they have enough yellows or if the yellows are long enough.
I mean, and those cautions, not something that we see people having to deal with a lot on the roadside on iRacing, since those usually have to be thrown manually. Very few leagues use them. I don't know if you've had much time and experience getting to try and work out strategy when that is involved, but knowing that there are those caution flags always as kind of a threat in the back of your mind, is there anything in particular you think drivers need to do to cover themselves off?
Well, the main thing is to make sure that you don't, what's the word? Don't get caught blindsided. You always need to have a plan. Like, what happens if a caution comes out now? What's the plan? And while some of it is a little bit reactionary, you should have a plan in terms of, do I pit now? Do I take tires? When is the cutoff window? When can I go to the end on one more stop? Or when can I go to the end without stopping again? And that's going to be very important for these LMP2s, because track position is important, and them starting in the back of the field because they had to pit under yellow is not exactly the best place for them to be, especially with how these classes end up in terms of pace.
Just about 3 minutes left here in the qualifying session, and I'm checking to see. Hard to tell if anybody else has laps left to go in the qualifying. And I think potentially, it looks like the 30 car has one lap left, but they're in pit lane, so I'm not sure that they'll be able to take that, as that would count their out lap as the next one. But we'll check in on that. Before, though, we get to the racing, obviously, we want to give a quick mention to a major figure here in the majors, as it were, who has sadly left us recently. Many of you who have been following the majors coverage and heard us talk about John King and the hashtag Racing for John, he has sadly succumbed to his battle with cancer. So we're going to be having a special silent lap 6 in honor with John having raced the number 6 in his career in the majors. And our hearts go out to his friends and family who obviously right now are mourning for his loss, but definitely want to celebrate all the contributions that he's made that have really made a huge difference in this series. I know you've done a lot of work with him behind the scenes, and I know it's been kind of a difficult time for you watching this all unfold.
Absolutely. John was one of my mentors when I first got into sim racing. He was actually the first one who recruited me to Blackadder when that was a team, and this was way back 2016, 2015, something like that. So it's obviously very hard for me to see him pass, but at the same time, I'm thankful for all the things he's done for me and for the rest of the iRacing community.
Has touched a lot of lives out here. As we get the last couple minutes here ticking down. Joey, in our time watching the warm-up and then the qualifying session, is anything in particular piqued your interest, especially among your GT4 group or maybe even the GTEs?
Well, last time I was here for this series was at Road Atlanta, and that's honestly a pretty similar track, I think, in terms of the dynamics between the LMP2s and the GT4s, because it's a lot of fast sweepers. There's a couple of passing zones where the LMP2s are going to have to just take whatever opportunity they can get. But what we saw at Road Atlanta was that if you get stuck behind a GT4 in one of the twistier sections where there's no braking zones, you're going to be stuck behind that car for maybe 10, 15 seconds. So we might be seeing some LMP2 cars get very aggressive and maybe make some passes that won't work out. And it'll just come down to who can survive navigating this traffic.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about it a lot already. That is the season finale. So, I mean, from here, for some, it's the championship, and for some, it's just about getting as good a result as they can. So there's going to be all those differing motivations for the teams on who is looking for what out there, and they need to weigh their options and see which is more important, getting past that car right now or holding on to it, keeping the car whole until all is said and done, as it looks like our qualifying session is officially over, which means our grid is now set. It's time to go through our starting order. Not many for me to read on our prototype class, as Texans Fitstye Motorsports Athena starts it on the pole, with Fitstye Motorsports Aries will be next to them on the front row. It'll be XMB Race Design starting in P3, Switch It Topaz in fourth, and Suderia Monza rounds out your 5 LMP2 car field. What about those GTEs, Si?
Well, on pole we have the Calvert Dynamics Bombshell Racing, a good place for them to start considering they're the points leader. Behind them we have the Evolve SimSports SPB team, and in third place we have the TechSense Fitstye Motorsport Hades, SimTV Bombshell Racing team, and then we have the Mach 1 Esports team, and behind them the Evolve SimSports Titanium, and then behind them we have the Middle Finger Racing team, always fun to see them. And then the number 10 Elite West USA, Speedworks Racing, Black Tree Race Crew, Hard Promises Racing, V Apex Racing Group Atlantis, Howler Racing, Sector 5 Wild Blue Yonder, Kinetic Racing MTEC number 166, Sector 5 Black Ball, and the Grizzly Motorsports by TFR Lab.
And then up in row 12 for our GT4 cars. We only have 6 of them, but it'll still be a fairly competitive race. On pole for this class is the Grid Life iRacers Bombshell Racing Team, with Zachary Buchanan of Canada starting that race out there. And behind them is the first of the CMSRacing.com cars. And behind that is the other of the CMSRacing.com cars. In 26th is the other Grid Life iRacers Bombshell Racing Team car. 27th is Section 8, and shotgun on the field is the Mad Sim Racing Yellow team in the BMW.
All right, Ben Johnson in the number 68 is taking the point behind the Porsche pace car. And they'll be going racing for 3 hours in the last race of the season, starting just past 8 a.m. virtual standard time. We're going to be going almost to the middle of the day, where the sun is going to be high in the sky and beating down on the track. Who is that going to catch out when we get to the end of this race? Who's got it set up for start to finish in those differing conditions? Porsche pace car is in. The 68 trundles around the Coca-Cola hairpin, waiting patiently, looking for the green flag, and now he is on it. The start of 3 hours for the season finale in the Majors Team Endurance Challenge, and Jack Stiles in the Fittstein number 59 is already falling victim to Mueller, getting ahead of him. In fact, Mueller's going to look for the lead as he goes inside of Johnson. He's going to get that away, a change at the front. Let's head to the GTEs.
The green flag has flown for the GTEs, and Tom O'Gorman in the Calvert Dynamics Bombshell Racing Team has the lead, but he's being fought by Aaron Stanley too, and looks like, a little bit wide there for Aaron. It's going to be interesting, and then we're going to hand off to the GT4s to see what they're like.
No changes so far from the start. It is Buchanan in the Grid Life iRacers Bombshell Racing Team, all the words, ahead of the 2 CMSRacing.com cars. Linus Stern right now, the 2 BMWs looking to try and get a little bit close together and try and catch that Porsche up front, but at the moment we are single file.
Good clean start. It's a long race. Good to see everybody keep a cool head. Now, X and B, now that they've got that clear air, are starting to stretch away already in a 3-car train between the 68, the 59, and the 36. That's Scuderia Monza, who have jumped up from the tail of this prototype field, trying to see if they can hold on to these teammates running in front of them. Oh, and a good run here from Stiles as he is going to go around Ben Johnson. His teammate not going to fight that one through. Looks like Enrique in the 36 not able to capitalize on it, but still giving close watch. If we jump back to the lead in the GTE class, the 188 with Tom O'Gorman in there, has Andrew Waring quite close behind him still.
Yeah, unfortunately, after the first turn lockup, Aaron has fallen back to 3rd, but it looks like Andrew's keeping Tom honest. We know that Andrew's really fast, and I've seen him a lot in the GT cars, GT4s, and Porsche Cup as well. And it looks like he's going to give Tom a good fight here. But look, Tom doesn't need to fight him too hard to get the championship win here. So I'm interested to see how much he's going to fight Andrew here for the lead.
Yeah, of course, the Evolve Sim Sports Titanium is the one they're really worried about, as now that Stiles has gotten by Johnson, it looks like Enrique has been continuing to apply the pressure. The 36 just waiting behind as they go through the Dunlop hairpin and head back up the track through the Schumacher S. This is one of those parts we heard Joey talking about where not many places to pass through here, just a lot of quick corners.
Shouldn't be too long till they catch the GT4s.
Very true. And in fact, I see that the GT4 is heading into the Mercedes Arena right now, and Mueller's just finishing up the lap. So yeah, it's going to be happening quite quickly. As we look at the front of our GT4 field, Buchanan is only about 9/10 of a second ahead of Brett Stevens, but they're all evenly spaced apart down here, Joey.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be seeing too much in terms of overtaking and attacking just yet, but when those LMP2s catch, and a little bit later when those GTEs catch up, that's when it's going to start getting a little bit crazy.
undoubtedly, as it seems to be a whole lot of the Porsches. Actually, no, as I say that, looks like maybe we do have more BMWs at this point. Oh, we got to go to the lead in the LMP2s, though, as Mueller has been caught by Styles. Now that the 59 is free of his teammate, he seems to have so much more pace.
Flashing the lights a little bit there. I don't know if Dick cut him off there or something, or if Jack is just trying to get him under the skin, but that is one of those tricks that LMP2 drivers do, both the lap traffic and within their own class, so it's funny to see Jack doing that to Dick here, trying to get under his skin.
Especially this early on, I would think he'd be a little more calm, less frazzled at this stage in the race as they swing it off of the Dunlop hairpin. He stays right with them. Now through the Schumacher S, trying to withstand the buffeting of the car head. Look at how far he swung wide.
Yeah, the aerodynamic push. Oh, as he looks to the inside there, gets the door closed by Dick. But yeah, the dirty air in this car is significant, John. If you don't plan for it, if you don't sort of trim your apex speed accordingly, you will find yourself pushing one and very dangerous coming out of the Schumacher S there. The track or the curbing on the outside is unforgiving.
Getting ready to start lap 4 here. Now down through the quicker version of that final chicane, the VLN chicane, and into the Coca-Cola hairpin, onto the front stretch one more time. He caught him quickly, but he's also not looking like he's attacking as quickly. We did see a little bit of a move. Let's see if this one offers a better chance down into the Haug hook. And as he pokes his nose in, and once again, he gets chopped off at the apex.
That was very close. I almost thought he was going to get turned on the nose there, but luckily it looks like, looks like they're racing clean for the time being. I'll look forward to see how they're doing in traffic.
Back over to these GTE cars, though, and Waring continuing to make sure that O'Gorman has his mirrors absolutely full of that 1, 2, 4. Could he have a shot? He's pretty close. We saw the LMP2s almost go side by side into the Haug hook, and this time it's going to be defense from O'Gorman, trying to make sure and cover him off. Could be an over-under from the 1, 2, 4. Not quite. Can't get the launch off of there.
You mentioned a little bit earlier in the race that Tom O'Gorman is thinking about the championship here, but is he thinking about the championship or is he thinking about winning this race? Because if he's thinking about winning the championship, maybe he shouldn't be warring with Waring so much, but he wants to win the race. Everyone wants to win the race.
Well, here's the thing, though. His main competitor, the TechSense Fitzy Motorsport Hades team, is in third. He doesn't have to fight and risk being taken out in a racing incident with with Waring. If he could let Andrew Waring in front and just sort of save fuel behind him, he'll put him in a better spot if they can pull away from third place. But if they fight like this, it'll bring back Aaron into the fight.
Look at how close they're running right now, and it does seem like O'Gorman is at least frazzled enough that he continues to defend. He's not strong off the Schumacher S either. Once again, making sure to take the middle of the road, giving just enough space to Waring. He can't do it there, but he's starting to get some mistakes out of the 188.
We'll have to keep an eye on the lap times to see if Stanley can catch the two ahead of him. But behind him, we have Eric Mickey and the Sim TV Bombshell Racing Team. They are in the fight for the championship win, I believe. But it's impressive to see them so far up the order, considering they've only they're a relatively new team, I would say.
We got to go to the LMP2 lead. Another look from Jack Styles, this time into Valvoline. Not much braking into that corner, so that one didn't work out. But they have hit the GT4 cars. Maybe he's trying to use those as a distraction. Jack holding to the racing line as Mueller stays to the inside, but now he's going to get plugged up behind Chris Taylor. Taylor drifts off to the outside, and they're able to finally get through.
And here's the fast part of the track. The Schumacher S, is that BMW is going to track out? No! Thankfully, the BMW saw them coming and stayed to the right, but that can be tricky, especially with the closing speed of these LMP2s.
Now, as we get ready to finish lap 5, we are going to go quiet for a lap. Lap 6 dedicated to John King, hashtag Racing for John, here in the majors, who we are extremely grateful for. As before that, we are going to get a pass for the lead. Jack Styles will get in front of Dick Mueller with a well-executed pass as we pay homage to a great man. can't thank John enough for everything he's done. He recently made the comment before his passing that I don't know, talking about me specifically, I don't know that he can drive, but he sure knows how to talk about a race. And John, can't thank you enough for the smiles that you gave me and all the help that you gave over the years. Information on the races, the teams, your drivers, and hope that wherever you're watching, this race brings a smile to you. As we take a look at our GTE lead, nothing's changed, but Waring is still right there and watching. Sai, is there enough of a slipstream in these GTEs to offer a chance to do some fuel shenanigans?
Oh, absolutely. There's always a chance to do fuel shenanigans in any car, Joe, but especially with these GTEs down these long straights, coming into the the VLN chicane and into turn 1, there is an opportunity. We are looking at Andrew Waring kind of looking here. We see Tom O'Gorman going defensive slightly and looking at the outside. That could be just him keeping Tom on his toes here. He doesn't seem to be trying to make the pass too hard. Yeah, he's going to slot in behind him here. I think he's just trying to keep Tom on his toes, maybe force a little bit of a mistake. He looks for the over-under possibly, but no, Tom cuts him off. But yeah, I mean, these cars can't quite make the hour, Joe, in terms of fuel. I believe they can do about 55 minutes, but if they can save fuel and with the help of maybe one caution, they can save a stop or a splash dash at the end.
So I wonder if we're seeing that 124 try and use that to his advantage. They haven't dropped those behind them by a whole lot. In fact, it is still relatively close for third place. It's Aaron Stanley back there in the Fitzdie Hades car. He's being chased by Mickey. Sorry, almost mispronounced that name in a bad way. 186 of the Sim TV Bombshell Racing team being chased by Jesse Butler in the Mach 1 Esports 163. They come out of the Schumacher S. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the lap times seem pretty even, like you were saying, Joe. I think these guys battling it up front, not quite as intense as we know is possible with these cars, but sort of making Tom O'Gorman second guess his line, sort of going him half defensive into the corners, keeping these guys in touch. I expect when the LMP2s come through, that might change. And they're in the GT4 traffic now, so that might change even sooner than I thought.
Oh boy, yeah, if they get caught by those LMP2s as they're dealing with this, that's going to be a double whammy, watching ahead and behind. Certainly not going to be a fun time as they come onto the main straight once again, and it's starting to look a little bit plugged up here. You can see them fanning out. And Andrew is going to take another look. Another hard defensive move from O'Gorman. He breaks way early as Waring goes the long way around. He's going to have the inside. Maybe no. Covered off yet again. This is getting a little bit intense for only 15 minutes into this race.
Tom showing that excellent defensive driving he's known for. But I wonder if it's only a matter of time until Waring finds a crack in that armor. I think Waring's taking it easy on him for the time being, to be honest. I think because it's so early in a 3-hour race.
Well, let's jump back to our GT4 leaders for a bit as well. It looks like Buchanan's pulling himself out to a handy gap over Brett Stevens, about 5 seconds. And the 178 of that CMS Racing Team 1, looking like he's maybe more watching the mirrors, although it is his teammate. The two BMWs running line astern as they come through the Schumacher S.
Yeah, Taylor was very close to the back of his teammate a couple laps ago. I thought they were going to be doing a little bit of team orders, but they did not. They're still running in that same order they were, as O'Gorman and Waring trying to navigate through these two CMSRacing.com cars, but Zach Buchanan has pulled a 5.2 second gap. That man loves him a Porsche, and he's showing it off so far.
Yeah, certainly faring well, and if he can continue to gap like this 15 minutes at a time, he's going to have a monster buffer by the end of this race.
We know that the GT4s have gotten an update in the last patch, haven't they?
That's true, they have, and it did change the dynamic between them somewhat from what I've been reading. Granted, we do not have the McLaren here today. It's still just the BMW and the Porsche. As down into the Haug hook, Stanley finds Eric Mickey suddenly taking a poke down into that corner, but nothing doing, just half-heartedly taking an inside line. Yeah, this is the moment where I wish we had Christian Challenger to help us. I know he is quite the expert on these GT4 cars. Could probably give us a bit more information on what to expect between them here at the ring. Boy, this is an awkward spot, though, as they go past our leader in the GT4s. Buchanan can't do much more to make his car disappear.
It's all about that multi-class sort of timing here. Some of these GT cars are getting unlucky with the way they're having to go through these GT4 cars, especially through the faster the corner, the worse it is for the GTs, the GT4s basically, because they get run down at such a high rate of knots. It's almost scary because you're told not to race in your mirrors, and you're told sort of to run your line, but that's hard to do when you got people basically at airplane speeds coming up behind you.
Ooh, and our LMP2s are catching both classes now. Jack Stiles actually having to go 3 wide. We had some contact. That was Tyler Beeman, and it looks like he touched Jeff Yeager along with Dick Mueller having a piece of that. Let's see if we can get a replay. This starts with Mueller in the Schumacher S.
Oh,
yeah, that's
just
Beeman.
Just a little tap from that LMP2, it looked like. Maybe a little bit of netcode or just misjudging the gap. If we can get a closer look at that, we'll see which of that it was. But you can see 3 classes of cars just intersecting at once, and it was bound to happen eventually.
Yeah, that Porsche that you saw from the GTEs, that was Jeff Yeager, who definitely got a decent hit there. He didn't come into pit lane, so hopefully that's as little damage as possible with it being a glancing blow, and he's able to make it to the pit stop. Let's take a closer look at him as we pull up Yeager. Excuse me, I called it a Porsche. That is, that's a Ferrari. Got a little bit of damage on it, not a whole lot it seems.
Well, that right rear looks worrisome to me, Joe. I mean, especially with how much these cars need that downforce around here through the fast left-right of the Schumacher S. Any sort of rear aero damage can make the car very loose very quickly. This is the first time he's going to have to do it after the damage last lap.
As he comes down through Valvoline and Ford, which then plunges quite a ways downhill into the Dunlop chicane, or Dunlop hairpin, rather.
We're not at Le Mans, Joe.
Yeah, I know. Can't tell Ferraris and Porsches apart. Can't tell 2 tracks apart today. Now, up at the front with O'Gorman and Waring, we've seen a few pokes and prods. Cy seems to think that Waring's not really taking this too seriously yet, just trying to see if he can shake O'Gorman into some sort of major error to give it to him more readily. It doesn't look like he's close enough to really do anything here on this attempt.
Did I see a little bit of lifting coast there for Andrew? Or was that just me?
I'm not sure. It was hard to tell. If it was very subtle. So we've been toying with the idea on whether or not Waring has been doing it. So it could be. And he's just right now quite content where he is, making those little annoying maneuvers to make sure that the Calvert Dynamics bombshell car is just on edge enough to never be able to relax as they come down once again. Been seeing a little bit of cloud cover here and there as they come back into the sunshine. And the track has heated up by about 3 degrees Fahrenheit since the start of the race.
And this strategy seems to be working. They've pulled about a 5-second gap to Calvert Racing, or Calvert Dynamics, Bombshell Racing Team's biggest competitor in terms of the team championship, in 3rd place. They're about a 5-second gap and not really reeling them in at all. So in fact, I would say they're pulling away from the second group of cars there. So I don't know if Andrew Waring knows what the championship situation is, considering he's not in the championship, but I would expect him to still want to go for the win regardless, and maybe Tom O'Gorman should let him have it just to protect him, and considering how close the point situation is. So it's just a question of long-term thinking.
I mean, both as a driver and as someone who's up on the box sometimes, is that something that you think about, what's going on with other drivers championship-wise, or do you just put that out of your head and say, I'm going to race my own race?
That depends on a lot, Joe. It depends on what's riding on it, I suppose. Especially if you're up on the box, you want to consolidate and bring that championship home, regardless of whether you want the win or not. But the drivers, well, this might be a bit hypocritical coming from me, but they got egos.
I mean, all three of us in here are drivers, so I think we can understand where you're coming from on that. As they come out of the Mercedes arena, and Mickey's still under threat from Butler, but Butler hasn't shown like quite as much as we've seen from Andrew Warren in terms of poking and prodding and trying to get that Corvette to go offline. As we hop onto the nose of the 163, the Porsche, still doing what he can to at least keep up with him. They're going to be met by our leader in the LMP2s, Jack Stiles, bringing that Texans Fitzstye Motorsports Aries car up behind quite quickly. He'll mesh him in the car for him once they get to their driver change, but a long ways to that as he ducks it inside on the entry to the Schumacher S.
That's a very tricky place to pass, and luckily the Porsche did turn in on him there. I've seen a lot of LMP2s door bang GTEs out of the way on the entry to that corner. You lose almost a second and a half if you have to sit behind a GT car through there. So I can see where the prototype's coming from, but at the same time, that Porsche is lucky to have lifted.
Sometimes a bit of give and take is helpful to allow you to see the checkered flag, I suppose, as they come through that VLN chicane. And Mickey's still chasing. Warren is much closer ahead of them, though, to our leader, O'Gorman, as they come down to the Howe Cook. In fact, Tom is starting to defend once again, but this time Warren looks a little more serious as he tries to take the inside all the way shallow to what is a very sharp corner. It doesn't stick, but some different strategies starting to play out for that 124 now. Is he finally thinking, I want to be ahead of this Corvette?
Maybe he's hit his lap number. He needs to go 1, maybe 2 laps longer to get to that 1 hour mark. So, like I said, maybe his crew chief is on the box telling him, okay, you've hit your number, now go past him. And now we might see him turn up the wick a little bit. The gap behind is still maintained about 5 seconds, so they're not losing anything by fighting here.
But look, a couple inches behind. There's a LMP2 car trying to navigate through them, but they've caught the 2 GTE cars at a pretty convenient place as Waring tries to sweep it around the outside there. That was close, but that didn't work out.
Almost looks like he was trying to get inside the head of Tom O'Gorman there.
I was going to say, almost, I think he tried to use Jack as a bit of a pick, it looked like. He saw him coming through and figured he was going to be distracted enough he could try and send one in.
And we got an LMP2 coming by, and now we got these 2 going by a GT4, but little bit of a hold up there for O'Gorman, but nothing too bad. That was pretty problem-free in terms of navigating traffic there.
Oh, but look at this. This is a great run. Warren could have another go at it, but it's the quicker version of the chicane. He's not willing to risk it into there this time. All the way up onto the curb, straddling it practically, as the 124 is using every inch of the track now.
Oh, he's much closer now, and I think this is a much better run into turn 1. It's going to be interesting. He's going to pick the inside or the outside. I think Tom's going to defend the inside. Oh, he's going to get pressed up right against the pit wall into the grass.
Sends it in very deep.
Sends it in very deep into the gravel trap. Oh, he overcooked that by a mile. Woo.
Yeah, that was very committed on the inside. I didn't think that was going to work out.
Let's watch it one more time. He was inches away from that tire barrier. This will be a good angle on it, I think. Look at how close he gets here. Right up to it. He may have even just brushed that thing, left a little paint.
When you're in the car here, you're just like, no, 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 no. Oh, he just barely missed it. That is a lucky escape right there, and I think he's going to be regretting sending it so hard to the inside there.
Yeah, he was the Barrichello, the Schumacher sandwich, as I would say, being pressed up against the pit wall like that.
Now back behind them, Mickey's dropped off of Stanley. It's become a battle for 4th instead of for 3rd. Butler, who's been right up tight to the rear of that Corvette, continues to make sure that he keeps the 186 honest. They work their way up and over the crest of the Schumacher S, and then it's back downhill once again into 11 and Bilstein. In front of them, Stanley ahead by about a second and a half. So if they play nice, they could try and catch back up to him. But if they start fighting, it's going to be a good night to that third place.
Well, now that the lead battle in the GTE has broken up a little bit, I'm interested to see what Waring can do when he puts his foot down without having to sort of think about strategy. We know he was getting more aggressive, possibly because he hit his fuel number, but now that he's in clean air, about 3 seconds behind the Calvert Dynamics Bombshell team, how much faster is he and how quickly can he bring that gap back down?
And I was thinking the same thing, Joey, that it's one thing to sit and ride behind the car ahead. It's another to know like whether or not he has the pace, and this has me curious. We'll have to keep an eye on that one.
Well, the gap's already down to 2.7 from 3 seconds. So.
Wow.
It did look like Waring was just playing with Tom O'Gorman for a while there. Like, I almost saw him lifting on the straight just to not get as much of a draft as he could have gotten. But he's pushing now, and we are seeing the time fall down very quickly already through every corner.
Ooh, and the fight that we jumped away from with Mickey just got spread apart a little bit. Butler got caught up in traffic, had to lock up the brakes. If we get a quick onboard replay of the 163, he unfortunately met up with Stephen Paulson at the exact wrong time. You can see him right behind that Corvette through Valvoline and Ford. Oh, whoa.
Oh, that's always tricky.
He's just trying to set up a better line through that corner, try and get a good run onto the straight, and he went to the outside. No, there's Porsche there.
Thankfully, nobody made any sort of contact or had any sort of spins or offs. So they're both able to continue, but he's got some ground to make up as it's back up to 0.6 of a second to catch Mickey. We're going to go through that final chicane into Coca-Cola one more time. Looks like Butler as well, a little bit faster maybe than that 186 as he's closing down that gap slightly. Almost a half an hour into things, so in about, 10 to 13 more minutes, we should see the end of the pit window for our LMP2, so it'll be fascinating to watch who employs what strategy there.
And more importantly, I would say the first lap time since they came in, or rather were separated from the GTE lead, 0.3 a lap faster for Andrew Waring over Tom O'Gorman.
Yeah, it definitely looks like Waring was being held up by some margin. And he's had his own bit of traffic to deal with. So I just watched him go by a few more of the GT4 cars. This is Jack Stiles on the screen right now in the number 59. Our LMP2 leader since pretty much the start of the race. Started from the front row and has since promoted himself one position. So we got a nice little battle between Mueller and Johnson for third position. Ooh, and being held up big time, Zach Buchanan, leader of the GT4s, has nowhere to go other than wherever he can place his car. Johnson can't get the launch off the final corner, though.
But it did bring the gap down. He's well within the draft now, and it looks like he'll probably have to make a move back on the, next on the back straight. Look how close he's getting onto the brakes there. I think he's pretty confident, I'd say.
We ride on board watching forward to different lines into the Mercedes arena. Mueller taking a little bit of a wider exit. Both of them trying to weave their way out of that last little bit. And this looks pretty good for Johnson. But again, very little braking down into Valvoline is going to deny him. Oh, a mistake from both of them. Mueller with his wheels off in the dirt. Johnson spinning up the tires. So no change, but a scary moment for each. Oh, and that Butler-Mickey battle has finally switched around as Butler gets by. Where did this happen? This was a strange place. This happens in the Mercedes Arena, it looks like. So within about the last 30 to 40 seconds. Yeah, there it is. That's where he made the dive, right there. Butler catching him with his pants down.
It looks like Butler may have used a GT4 car as a pick as well, just watching it back. Just sent it in there very deep.
Great stuff. Advantageous. And Butler gets 4th place because of that. Now, can he leave behind that SimTV bombshell car? As I look through the field, and many of our battles have spread apart, but a few in the mid-packs of each of the classes have certainly been closing together. Looks like we got a bit of a battle for 9th in the GTEs. We haven't looked back here yet so far in this race. The Elite West USA of David Hall trying to fend off Speedworks Racing's Peter Vostrel.
Am I right in saying this is the highest placed Ferrari?
Yes, you are correct.
Interesting. The BOP for the GTE class is very close at most tracks, but it seems to be very favored towards the Corvettes. I think we have 3 Corvettes in the top 5 at the moment, with one BMW, one Porsche hanging out in there. So maybe Ferraris are struggling a little bit.
Yeah, honestly, of the top 7, there is only that one BMW and one Porsche. Everything else is Corvettes. Now, I don't believe they're able to change cars, though. If I remember correctly, I think they have to pick one and stick with it for the season. As we watch Hall still being chased around. And Hall going to be handing over to Gregory Hectus. We haven't talked about this yet. The anchor that we often see in these teams. I believe Hectus, from what we saw season past, or races past rather, is quite fast. And our leader is in. Jack Stiles is the first to blink. Interesting. Hits his stall cleanly. No backing up to try and correct it. Is that damage on the front, the left front there?
It does. It does look like it's damaged.
Is that something that the curbs can do around here? I know there is a few tall places, but otherwise I'm trying to think of if we've seen him hit anything.
Well, let me take a look, Joe. I'll get back to you in a second here.
I saw the gap go down between them and Scuderia Monza, go down about 2 seconds per lap, but I couldn't find any incident that caused that, so maybe I just missed it.
Well, it popped back into place as they do not have a spare car here, though. So that was all just fixing up the machine as he comes right back in the thick of traffic. Unfortunately, that's Buchanan and Spencer Todd, 2 different class cars, so that's not a battle with each other. As you can see, even with this LMP2, some miscommunication easy to affect between them. Everybody trying to find their own piece of racetrack and be on their way. Sai, it looks like you've spotted something. What happened?
Speaking of incidents in the Mercedes arena, that's exactly what happened to Jack Stiles. He just got a little bit tangled up with the Grizzly Motorsports car of Glenn Papp, and he just gave them a good old love tap, and that dented the front left of the prototype end. That is very, very costly, both in terms of downforce and drag. So that's why his lap times, as we noticed, were a little bit slow coming into the pit lane. And I guess his team eventually decided it's not worth the time being lost, and just brought him in about 5 minutes early.
Okay, so gonna have to stay flexible as this changes the equation for them. In the meantime, Joey, we've been watching that Evolve Sim Sports SPB car, and it is already right glued to the back of the 188.
it's like that lock up and off never happened. The battle is just exactly where it was a couple laps ago. We're seeing Waring just in the draft, going to the outside into this hairpin at turn 1 this time, but still just unable to make the move. We'll see. Maybe as they come to that corner again, will Waring be able to line it up better and finally make it past? But right now, he's still just stuck behind.
I'm sure he's learned a few things after last time, though, as he trails that 188 Corvette down towards Valvoline. We ride on board with the 124. Oh, is a little
Big
wide.
bobble. Looks like he just dropped the right rear of the car and entry into the grass there, just broke it loose. Great save from Waring, though.
Almost handed away all that work that he just did to get back to him. And through the Dunlop hairpin. He's going to manage to do that one a little bit cleaner. They've got a ways to go before their pit window gets towards the closing laps of it.
You can tell that Waring is pushing really hard now to try and get by O'Gorman. We're seeing him go wider than he ever has. We're seeing a couple more bobbles and wiggles. This guy desperately wants first place here, and we'll see down to turn 1 if it can finally happen this time.
Yeah, he's already got the knowledge of what the car can and can't do, or at least what it can't do, that half of it. And let's see if he attempts it again, but he'll have to be as close. Last time, that was the best run we've seen yet. Oh, and he's very close. This is going to be a good one. He drops back a little bit on the runoff of Coca-Cola. Not sure if he's going to have the chance that maybe he was looking for.
Yeah, last time he was practically alongside by the end of the pit wall, not quite close enough that time. I wonder, we're not that far into the race, but is tire wear maybe starting to play a role? Was Waring pushing maybe too hard and he's cooked his tires and O'Gorman's got a little more life left in him?
You know, you could be right, Joey, because in the last patch, these GTE cars did have their tire wear increased to sort of avoid them doing sort of 4 stints on one tire in the endurance races. That could come back to bite these guys, because before these, they could do this 3-hour race on one tire change, maybe not even changing tires at all if they were really good. But that's definitely not the case anymore, and it could be coming back to bite Waring, especially with his big lockups and slides he's been having so far.
Still right there on his tailpipe, making sure that O'Gorman's going to have to work for this race. As you see them work through the Schumacher S. This is another good run and another little poke of the nose, but Waring doesn't send it deep down into turn 11, just holds behind. Could he be looking for another chance into the Haug hook instead? Let's stay with us and see if he's able to get the exit he needs off of Coca-Cola. Once again, just drifting off across the track. O'Gorman making sure it's tough to pick a side for that 124 car. Here's where he needs to be absolutely spotless. And Waring launches it off the turn, but it looks just like last time.
I think he got on the throttle just a little bit too early. You could see him washing out. Just that little, like, millisecond of recovery, that makes the difference in being able to make a pass and not being able to make a pass, especially when you're racing someone of the caliber of Tom O'Gorman.
All right, we're getting close to that prototype pit stop window closing up here as these two cycle around. We're going to glance at our new leader, Jason Henrique for Scuderia Monza. Started from 5th, interestingly. Clearly much better in terms of race pace than their qualifying. Granted, he would have been 2nd, as we've had a pit stop from Jack Stiles in the Texas Fitstye Aries car. But I'd have to say that it is looking quite good so far for the 36. It'll be a question of whether or not his teammate, which will either be Domenico Masi or Steve Libretto, are as fast as he is. We often talk about drivers having that home court advantage, and one that we don't hear of as often, at least on our channel, is drivers are able to call the Nurburgring their home track, and in fact really is accurate for the 75 team, Black Tree Race Crew. Reutering in the number 75, currently sharing that one with the likes of Thomas Silbernail, as we've been told by our resident German speaker. And they live, from what I understand, I think less than 30 minutes away. Very jealous of everybody's actually got to go and drive this circuit. More so the Nordschleife, I should say, is that's on my bucket list. I want to get there eventually. He's kind of all on his own here is Bernard. Sitting in 8th position. Kind of cruising around, and that was Dick Mueller just behind him, who we saw duck in, flashing by. The 30 takes a pit stop. So does the 36. First and second place are now on the lane.
That's lap 25, and they're about 44 minutes into this race. 42 minutes, rather, into this race. So yeah, it looks like they will have to do about 4.5 stints to do 3 hours. Unfortunately, I was doing the maths here in the background for Scuderia Monza. Even if both Texas cars don't finish, they are mathematically out of the points championship, unfortunately, because of the way these points pay out. So while they can win, they won't win while they'll win the battle, they can't win the war, unfortunately.
Well, maybe that's what they're aiming for. Thinking just about that win today to close it out on a high note. Brett Trocine hops into that XMB number 30, waiting for the car to finish fueling up, and then he'll be able to return to the track. Where is Jack Stiles? Jack Stiles is just going by right now. So he goes up to second, but we're waiting on Claudio Crescentini to pit in the number 19 Switch It Topaz. And the only driver to manage to make it to the end of lap 25, hopefully to the end of lap 25, unless they've cut this close.
It's also interesting to see the split in strategies here. You see several cars taking tires and several cars not taking tires. It's the LMP2 can double stint the tires, but on some tracks it's just not worth it. So the split in strategy here will be interesting to see if the cars taking tires can claw it back over the rest of this race.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised that they're trying that at this track as well, since this is a track with a lot of high and medium speed corners that I would think would chew away at the tires. Oh, and what's going on with our GTE lead? It looks like Waring had another good run, and unfortunately they're in the wrong place for Ben Johnson, who is going to take the inside line away from O'Gorman. This time, can Waring finally seal the deal? They bang wheels as they come off of the hairpin. He's on the wrong side in the entry into the Schumacher S. Once again, it doesn't bear fruit, but Waring is getting all the more antsy and certainly looking a little bit more urgent than the first half hour of this race.
They got stuck in a GT4 LMP2 sandwich, and Waring was finally able to get completely alongside O'Gorman, but it just didn't work out, and that's going to be even more frustrating for Waring. Like, what else do I have to do to get by this guy?
We report Crescentini did pit, so Stiles re-inherits the lead. I believe Johnson should come out ahead of him too. As Johnson's just going by now. Will he be overtaken by Henrique and Trocine? That's the question. He's going now. Henrique is at a full head of steam. And he is going to be through, but Trocine is too far back, so Switch It Topaz moves himself into fourth.
But meanwhile, look at the battle for the lead on screen in the GTEs. Andrew Waring had another look into turn one, but I guess he learned. Oh, and just as you say that, Tom O'Gorman has a lockup through the Mercedes chicane, stuck behind the GT4 car, coming out of the stadium now. Looks like Andrew Waring has a bit of a run, but look, LMP2 traffic once again stifling him. And these guys just don't know when to quit, do they?
I thought he was going for the grass again. I thought he was going to pull a German Ty Gibbs, but no, he thought better of it. He went to the outside, and it just didn't work out. There's not enough room.
Giving us plenty of action. I'm not complaining about that. That's Enrique, who split them apart slightly. And that's good news for O'Gorman, bad news for Wari. As they come through the Schumacher S once again. So our pit stops, our first set of pit stops rather, are now done for our LMP2s. And just as I say that, Javier Perez Torres in the 117 GTE car is down the lane. Hard Promises Racing taking what I believe is quite an early stop.
He could be taking a splash and dash early, Joe.
That's a good point. I think it feels pretty confident about things. Maybe try and move it around. Or it could be oriented towards the drivers, as we just saw Nick Kuhn hop into it. That's something that I guess they have to worry about more in the sim world than the real world, is sometimes drivers have other obligations and you have to get out of the car because you just don't have a choice.
Well, that brings up another thing. I think this league has some sort of driver share rule, as in one driver must drive a minimum amount of laps or can't drive more than a certain amount of laps. I don't expect these guys to have more than 2 drivers per car, so for them to be switching drivers this early is a bit confusing.
I'm trying to dig that up now. 60% distance. Well, okay, it gets complicated because they have Pro-Am teams and they have Pro teams. That might be something for a little bit later that I can really dig into as I try to keep my focus on the race. And back out onto the track, Nick Kuhn takes over for Torres, back in 15th. Having lost a lot of little spots, but able to get going. Now, looks like we got a bit of a battle for 4th in our GT4s. This is Steve Paulson for Section 8 with Beamon trying to chase behind him. Now, Tyler, we saw get involved in a bit of an incident earlier on. Not really his fault, though, as he collects a little bit of the dirt coming off of Coca-Cola and falls back behind Paulson.
Well, the reason that this is a battle for 4th instead of a battle for 5th is that something very, very unfortunate happened to Zach Buchanan in the leading car. I believe, I don't have confirmation, but I believe he had an equipment failure. I've known that he has been having some troubles with his equipment lately, and he pulled over to the side of the track in the arena, pulled over to the other side of the track, and that is desperately unfortunate for the car that had a 20-second lead. The driver, who was a second faster than anyone on track, just got robbed of the win by an equipment failure.
I wouldn't call it over yet. It seemed like he had a pretty good pace advantage. And, I mean, depending on how the cautions fall, luck could still swing his way. Now, granted, I say that, he is just about to go a lap down. There is Andrew Mickey coming back out to take over the car. That's just ahead of Brett Stevens, so they're barely staying on the lead lap. But again, it doesn't depend if the caution comes out on where they are in accordance to each other. It's going to be where the pace car goes.
And I'm not sure what kind of incident points we've been racking up so far, because it's been a pretty clean run so far. We've seen a couple incidents, a couple offs, but depending on the number they have set to bring out the first caution, I'm not entirely sure we'll get enough incident points to have a caution soon.
I don't think I'm pretty sure they haven't had a race yet this season without a caution. And I have a feeling that they'll have at least one. I'd be amazed if they set it high enough that they'll manage to avoid a single caution. It'll be more of a question of when and not if.
We've seen a couple bumps and bangs, but the field has kind of thinned out a little bit in terms of density here. We don't see a lot of multi-car battles at the moment. Maybe 1 or 2 cars or 2 can get out a little bit, but I think the most incidents we've seen so far is from incidents off tracks. So just dipping wheels off the track, we've seen a lot of that. We've seen people running wide onto the curbing, stuff like that. I think is what's going to bring out the yellow sooner or later.
That did take a little bit of some of our fights away. Honestly, the closest one right now is still for 4th and the GTEs. And that is between Jesse Butler and Eric Mickey, the other Mickey. Remember, he got passed by Butler earlier on in the race. Credit to Eric managing to hold onto the back of that Porsche and not let him get away. Mickey making sure that the Mach 1 Esports team can't relax here. With just about the 1/3 mark coming up pretty soon. Which of them is going to blink first in terms of strategy? Will that maybe allow the 186 a chance to get right back by? So we hop on board with Eric, looking from the helmet cam down the hill into the Dunlop hairpin. I love the interior of this newer-ish Corvette. One of the more recent additions here on the service. Of course, a car that hasn't even raced here at the ring in real life yet, I believe.
I think you're right, Joe.
Really unfortunate that we didn't really get to see it tested on a lot of European tracks last year, just due to COVID. But I'd rather the drivers and the teams all be safe, and hopefully this season that'll change.
And I've just received confirmation from the man himself, from Zachary Buchanan. He says that his wheel rim connection failed, and as a result, his wheelbase freaked out. So, again, just very unfortunate, but in real life, you have hardware failures, you have equipment failures, and I guess in iRacing you do too sometimes.
Is that the technical term? It freaked out?
I believe so. I haven't fulfilled my whole 4 years of iRacing equipment schooling, but it sounds right to me.
So this battle remains incredibly tight for a spot just outside of the podium as we keep watching Butler and Mickey. Just ahead of them is Aaron Stanley, rather. And actually, did they just catch him up quite a bit? Because I feel like that looked a little bit farther away a moment ago. They're coming across Beamon and Paulison. Another one of our battles, but this in the GT4s. Ooh, Paulison maybe going to hold up Stanley a little bit, and as well, Beamon finding himself having to get out of the way of Butler. Things getting awkward down through the Schumacher S, and critically, Butler manages to get by all of them. Unfortunately for Mickey, he nearly gets into the side of Paulison.
It's those GT4s and their lack of downforce just biting the GTEs again. Well, there's not much you can do about it other than just pray you catch them at a good spot, but looks like it affected them both equally, I'd say.
Yeah, but Paulison is now suddenly being attacked by Tyler down into the final chicane. Tyler breaks a little bit early, gives up some ground. Can he get it back coming through the final hairpin? Looks to try and launch that BMW off the corner, but the Porsche has the measure of him. He'll stay ahead by about half a second.
I just noticed in chat that the folks from Champion Sim Racing, CMSRacing.com, they say that the GT4 leader at the moment, Brett Stevens, is fuel saving, trying to ensure that he gets to 40%. So there's lots of strategy and lots of calculators open over at the CMS GT4 headquarters, and see if it works out for him.
Did they mean 40% of the race without stopping?
I believe so. That sounds about right to me.
Well, because we've seen one of the GT4s one stop it before in a fight for the win. In fact, I think it did net them the win, actually. I want to say that was at Road Atlanta that we witnessed that one happen. So definitely a viable strategy. It all depends on how the cautions fly and what kind of fuel consumption they're getting. Stevens still leading this one by about 8 seconds over Chris Taylor in his sister team, CMSRacing.com Team 2 car. Well, now that Tyler has dropped back from Paulison, we've returned the Porsche being chased by the Corvette. One of the fastest parts of the course here, although quite a ways uphill as you brake for the final chicane, and Eric Mickey doing everything he can to keep up with Butler. Now back up to the top of things, past the pit straight. Now let me look at the times Aaron Stanley has been putting in. 51.5, 50.5. Butler 51.2, 50.4. So yeah, Butler looking just that little bit quicker than Aaron Stanley. So this might become a 3-car fight before we know it.
Might be that big BMW is burning off the tires quickly, like you said earlier, Joe. I think the Porsche, just with its better grip off the corners, is kind of launching it onto the straights faster.
Porsche is definitely known for having all that weight on the rear end. Being able to work through there. Was that lockups from Stanley we just saw? Huge puffs of smoke. My goodness. Yeah, that was big lockups for the 164. Almost if he's letting those cars getting bigger in his mirrors get to him, and he's maybe pushing a little too hard. Down to 0.8 of a second now. Excuse me, 0.7 of a second even. Porsche gaining on the BMW.
Speaking of 0.7, the gap between the leader and the second place Evolve SimSports SPB is also the same. Andrew Waring has been doing it again, clawing that time back that he lost earlier. He's doing it slower now, I have noticed. He isn't the pace difference isn't as big to Tom O'Gorman as they come towards the pit window here. Only about 2 minutes left until the top of the hour, so I expect these GTEs to come in within the next lap or so.
Still, the only one to blink so far is Nick Kuhn, taking over for Torres. And the hard promises 117. Ooh, and here's some more traffic as our leaders deal with that, going by Ryan Carwile. Andrew Warren, unfortunately, having to take a very shallow line out of the Mercedes arena. That could have cost himself a little bit. Ooh, and Joey, did something happen out of the GT4s here?
Yeah, I just noticed. I saw Tyler Beeman going into the pits, and unfortunately it was just a little bit of an intersection between the classes, and Beeman just got flat out punted.
Not a good day for Beeman. We talked about how he had a little bit of contact with one of the LMP2s coming through the Schumacher S, so twice now he's found himself sent off the course due to something outside of his own hands a little bit. Ooh, and Enrique and Johnson, when did they get this close together? Look at this.
Looks like Enrique just passed Johnson into turn 1. Looks like he got the drive off the Coca-Cola hairpin, their final corner.
Let's take a look at that pass. Ooh, there's a little slide off of the Mercedes arena from Johnson. So this one just happened as we glanced over here. Here's the exit off the corner. Talk us through it, Si.
Well, it's pretty much textbook here into turn 1 at the Nurburgring. Just got to the inside, outbraked him, and just held his ground on the exit, just sort of covering off the over-under there. See that textbook. Just held the inside, just carried the speed.
All right, it looks like Evolve SimSports SPB car is going to be the first of our front runners in the GTEs to take a stop. The 124 comes down to his pit stall, and I saw him hit it cleanly. So far, so good.
In the car now is Joey Haynes. Not biased at all, but I'll be rooting for that first name. We'll see if he can keep up the pace that the previous driver of that car had, and if the undercut can work at all against Tom O'Gorman here whenever he comes in.
The
Haynes
clock has just
under,
hit 2 hours to go.
Haynes under, is that intentional? Or am I making more of that? as we check in on Jesse Butler. And now he has got... when did he get ahead of Aaron Stanley? Did we miss this? Did we see this overtake happen? So at some point, the 164 has been overtaken by the 163.
It was earlier that lap in the Mercedes arena, Joe.
Wow, okay. Butler has just been on a tear, working his way forward. Next car up is O'Gorman, but we know that the Evolve SimSports SPB car is pitted and Joey Haynes is back out, so we'll probably have to hand at least that position back when more pit stops happen. And in my ears, the alarm rings for the pit entry. That one will be Jeff Yeager.
Jeff Yeager was the car that unfortunately got a little bit of damage from that incident early on in the race, so we'll see if he can get some damage repaired here. And you can see on the back of that car, 2 tributes. Of course, a tribute to our own John King. We've mentioned him a lot today. And Sabine Schmitz, who unfortunately we lost a few days ago, the queen of the Nurburgring.
I'll definitely pour one out for her. I was gutted hearing that we had lost her as well. Eric Mickey, now the driver chasing, has been into the pits. He's taken his service, so it looks like he's going to try and maybe see if he can jump the likes of Stanley and Butler with a little bit of an off strategy. I think Mickey just handed that one over. James Walker now in.
While we were looking at the pit stop, Aaron Stanley just had a little bit of a coming together with Andrew Mickey in the GT4. It was just a little bit of beating and banging, but I don't think Aaron was very happy with the way Andrew was holding him up. Just gave him a little bit of the chrome horn to get him out of the way there.
Well, let's take a look at the replay on that. Let's see if it did much in the way of damage on the car. This comes down through Valvoline and Ford. Yeah, right here. And we already saw at least one driver in the GTEs have to brake incredibly hard to stay out of the GT4s into this corner. So it looks like there's quite a bit of speed difference, as even on the exit gives them a big shove.
I don't think
Andrew
that
flashing
was...
his lights in anger there.
Yeah, I don't think that was intentional. I think that was just kind of misjudging the size of his own car there from the GT3.
Oh, O'Gorman is in. All right. And what about Joey Haynes, who's been trailing him? Well, his teammate's been trailing him, rather, for much of this race. It was a 59-second stop for Joey Haynes. And O'Gorman just hit his pit stall now. Now, the Switch It Topaz car, they didn't have that long of a stint, did they? They were the last one in, I thought. Are they doing...
It's a very early stop, though.
Yeah.
They pitted on lap 25, and it's only been about 10 laps, so this may be their short stint.
Well,
that seems way too early for me, Joe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a very curious development. I wonder if they had some sort of damage that we missed as well. We're watching O'Gorman, who's now got... looks like... O'Gorman's still in the car. They have not switched. Oh, and some strategy calls from the 163. Mach 1. That looks like fuel only to me. That's going to get them out ahead of our former leader, the 188, who also manages to get out ahead of the 124, who they were fighting with before. The Evolve SimSports SPB didn't work out with the undercut. Joey Haynes unfortunately finds himself still chasing down that 188.
And am I right in saying the Evolve SimSports Titanium car has not pitted yet? So that's interesting. The Evolve SimSports car is only 1 point behind the leaders. That Calvert Dynamics Bombshell Racing car. It's only 1 point behind the leaders, and it is going the longest out of anybody here. Very interesting.
What if this comes back to that whole caution thing? because they know if they stay out, they almost get a free pit stop, if you will. Oh, and they're in now. So they've gone to the tail of their fuel window. And I believe we still got a couple others behind them that have yet to come in. Daniel Stevens, David Hall, and Christopher Sherburne as well. As you see, Glenn Papp still waiting to take service.
If my maths are right here, Joe, we could have an outside winner as Mach 1 Esports. If they stayed out and they can hold the lead on old tires, all they need to do is have, I believe, Evolve Titanium, Calvert, and Texans all need to finish third or below for them to win. It's an outside shot, but it's not impossible.
Well, we were saying you just don't know what's going to happen until the race is over. Mach 1 Esports has the lead, having inherited it with that quick stop. I do see that Evolve Sim Sports Titanium took a fuel-only stop. So did Speedworks Racing, and I believe also Sector 5 Black Ball. So a few of them are taking the gamble, seeing if those shorter stops will pay any sort of dividends, but we're waiting on the likes of the Elite West team to pit along with the Apex, or no, excuse me, Sector 5 Wild Blue Yonder to come down the lane.
And this is one of those situations I was talking about earlier in the race, Joe. If the caution comes out now, everybody who stayed out on old tires is a little bit screwed in the sense that it would neutralize the field and bring everybody back together. So their strategy, all the risks they took would be for basically nothing, as they would be stuck out on old tires and basically have their advantage in the pit stop neutralized. So this is a very, very sort of critical time for them to not get that caution, and I guess they gambled on it.
How far is this Ferrari going to go? Number 10 now running in third. Elite West currently leading the Evolve Sim Sports SPB, but again, Joey Haynes in that machine has already pitted, so they're not directly fighting with one another. He's going to hand this spot back as soon as Hall gets into pit lane. Let's see if he comes in this time. He's coming up towards the end of the lap into the VLN chicane.
If he doesn't pit this lap, I think, oh, there he goes, comes in. But I was about to say, if he doesn't come in this lap, I think Tech is going to impound their car to see if where he's stuck an extra fuel tank in there.
Yeah, it looks like he's in, so we're good on that front. Now past that 1/3 mark of this race, and that hands fourth rather, back to James Walker and the Sim TV Bombshell Racing team. Up at the front of the GT4s, it is still Brett Stevens, but we are waiting for just about everybody in the field to pit for GT4s. The only one that's been in is Andrew Mickey in the Grid Life iRacers Bombshell, but we do know that that was due to a hardware failure, easy for me to say.
It just seems like the gaps aren't coming down at all between these pretty much 4 remaining cars on the lead lap. The 4 remaining cars who are possibly fighting for the victory here. The gap between first and second, 7 seconds. Gap between second and third, 5 seconds. Gap between third and fourth, 1 minute and 2 seconds. So it's just going to be a matter of survival, it seems, for most of these drivers, and just hanging on to this position you've got.
We survived till the first hour in as commentators, so we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll come back with more action here in the season finale for the Majors Team Endurance Challenge. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Nurburgring. We are just about at halfway here for the last round of the Majors Team Endurance Challenge, and we see pit stops happening for our GT4 class. Jordan Johnson is getting in the car for Brett Stevens for the CMS iRacing Team 1. And then we've also got Grid Life iRacers 2 Bombshell with Ryan Carwile handing over to John Nichols. We're still waiting for Chris Taylor to pit in. Otherwise, it looks like we also just recently had a pit stop for Robert Gamble. Section 8 swapped out Stephen Paulison. It's all kicking off in our GT4 class. We have sadly lost at least one of those in that class. The only retiree so far today is the 282 Mad Sim Racing yellow car.
Yeah, unfortunately that was the car that Tyler Beeman was driving when he got punted into the wall. But we see the car of Jordan Johnson leaving the pits and John Nichols leaving as well.
Oh, and just in time, it looks like our LMP2 class has also hit the end of their second pit window. Jack Stiles takes it down the lane to look for his service.
If you remember, Joe, Jack was the first one to pit the last pit cycle as well. You remember he came in about 5 minutes early because of front end damage. So I don't expect the rest of the field to come in for another 5 minutes if that's the case. It could also be that they're kind of doing the 200 IQ strategy here and got their short stint out of the way first, and they're just leading everybody on at this point.
As he waits for it to fuel up. He has not gotten out of the car since the start. Doesn't appear to be this time. He's still got a chance to try and swap out for the end. And looks like Chris Taylor in our GT4s, the last of our GT4s actually, is now taking service. He's actually going to hand it over to Christopher Camiller. And let's see, where is Johnson right now? Jordan Johnson, currently our highest driver to have pitted in those GT4s, is coming through turn 11. And what's going on with our GTE lead? Here we go. Thomas Kircher has been caught by O'Gorman.
Remember, Kircher didn't take tires on his pit stop, and O'Gorman did. And there was about a 10-15 second gap between them when they left pit lane. And now O'Gorman has just run him down like a lion, or like a cheetah running down a gazelle, really. And it just shows how strong those new tires are, especially with the way these GTE tires fall off now after the patch.
There's the comparison between the pair of them on the pit lane, and O'Gorman is going to try and get his nose to the inside of the Porsche as they brake hard for Haug Hook. It'll still give the inside to Thomas Kircher, but he doesn't have that grip, mind you. Almost a little loose there from O'Gorman as he has to catch the car. Pass is not complete, and as he goes down to the apex, he's going to get chopped off.
I think you give the little Porsche rear end a love tap there, but it's interesting to see the roles reversed with O'Gorman doing the chasing now. Joey Haynes isn't that far behind, about 20 seconds, also on older tires, I believe. Interesting how that battle split them up. But now I think Tom O'Gorman's going to have to get really aggressive to get by him, because his strategy means that he needs to get past this Porsche to maintain the advantage he has on the new tires.
Credit to Henry. He's making this as hard as possible and has rebuffed O'Gorman a couple times now in this one lap. So let's see if maybe Tom tries a different approach. Does he try and get a little sneaky with it, or does he sit back and wait for those tires to really go off from that Porsche?
Well, Tom knows better than pretty much anyone in this race what works in terms of getting past the leader and what doesn't, because he had to hold off the Evolve Sim Sports car for so long. So is he learning from what didn't work there? He thinks about sending it side by side through this little S here, the little chicane, but that usually doesn't work. But will he have the inside here? Yes, he will.
But that Porsche's going to get a good exit. He's going to come back at him around the outside of turn 1 here. Now the question is which car has more power. They look pretty evenly matched, but the Porsche is pulling on him.
It's going to be the inside for O'Gorman, but this is where he was last time. if Thomas Kircher can continue to keep that overlap as they head down. And no, look at him come right across immediately. O'Gorman knew the deal this time and denied the 163 the chance to stick his nose in. So give the lead back to the Calvert Dynamics Corvette.
Now the question is how fast he can pull away.
That looks pretty fast already. He's already got half a second on him.
Yeah, there just wasn't enough grip on those old tires for Henry Thomas Kircher. He couldn't make that outside work. If he was on new tires, he probably could have.
And I think there's been a connection issue for the Evolve Sim Sport 124. I don't think this is one of our championship contenders, but definitely was a race contender for a potential win. And they're still not back. Oh, and yes, I just saw it. He has dropped the connection. Now, his teammate can hop back into the car, but there's going to be so much time lost from this one little problem.
They're going to be losing at least a lap from that connection issue. It's unfortunate.
Oh, absolutely gutting.
Well, I mean, it's an outside chance, but they could get a lap back if there's the yellow flag happens and they can get waved around the pace car.
At this point, I'd say that's their best hope of getting back into the hunt. Now, when are we going to see Scuderia Monza and the Fitzstye Athena car? And they've been out for about 21 laps now.
Well, they pitted around lap 24, 25 last time around. So I expect them to go at least that far, if not maybe one lap shorter because of they're not needing to fuel save as much.
Yeah, they're on lap 47 now. So they're getting pretty close. Should see them in soon, if they follow that same strategy at least. This is what I love about these longer races. So often, we cover so many series that are an hour or less here on GSRC. The pitch strategy, relatively straightforward. And here, I mean, gosh, it's already kind of all over the board.
I can confirm that Joey Haynes has reconnected to the server, but I have not seen their car get back on track with Andrew Waring at the wheel. It might be that they're waiting on a tow, but it's nothing confirmed so far.
I would think that we'd still be able to see the car appear in pit lane, though. Even with the tow, they just have to wait out the timer. So the connection, it does take a while. It says they're connected, but the sim is actually still loading, from what I recall, on what that means exactly. So we might still have to wait a bit before we get out there, as we are riding on board with the 68. This is the second place car and the LMP2s, but has yet to take his second stop. Still about 17 seconds behind Jason Henrique. Just heard someone into pit lane. That was Peter Vostrel. The Speedworks 133 is in. I do really like these new pit lane alarms, as it makes it a whole lot easier for us to catch when someone has come on down. Feels like we really are in a physical booth.
It's also very audible in the car. One time I've heard it at Road America coming into turn 5 when a car was pitting across the track in a Nissan GTP. Those alarms are loud.
Well, they got to be, I guess. Make sure that you don't miss it if you're a person on the lane in real life, not necessarily here in the sim. Looks like Utzel is in the car as he takes over for Vostrel, the Californian. Is going to see if he can bring this one home with just about exactly half the race left to go. Taking tires, it looks like. Looking up and down as we see this pit stop finish up for the Speedworks team. And still neither of our top two in the LMP2s take their pits. Joseph back on the track and rolling now. He is going to return in 12th place in his class in those GTE cars. Now, Joey Haynes may have connected. I wonder if it's just the fact that it takes so long to connect here on the Nurburgring that we're not seeing him yet. That 133, or excuse me, the 124 rather, continues to go laps down.
Pro tip, folks, invest in an SSD.
Here's our leader. And there you go. Leader's in, Henrique. maximizing that entry. He really cut across the track to try and take it out of the chicane as quickly as possible. Is he going to be followed in by Johnson? Johnson's coming up to the pit entry now. There we see him on screen in the 68. No, he'll stay out. In fact, man, he was so far back. Johnson still hasn't taken the lead. Now he goes by Henrique. That's how far behind he was. Jack Stiles. Where is Jack Stiles? Stiles is just coming through Bilstein here in a second. There you see him on screen. And looks like we got a driver change in Scuderia Monza. Domenico Masi hops into the car. Just under a minute for our pit stops. No, not this time though. It's a short one for Masi. About 35 seconds. He will get back out in second place well before Stiles can catch him.
Did Masi take tires on the first pit stop? I can't quite remember.
I would assume he did then. Double checking to see what the times look like. Maybe I can check the replay here and see if he did indeed take tires. Checking on my end, and yes, he took tires. So Jason Henrique did indeed put some fresh rubber on, but now he's going to try and double stint these ones as Jack Stiles to chase down that car with Masi in it. Has about a 4-second gap to make up. Do the fresh tires make a big enough difference on that one side?
They make a very significant difference, especially early on in the stint with heavy fuel. It doesn't matter as much on light fuel when it feels like you have, you feel like you're taking an elephant out of the boot of the car. But especially on old tires, full fuel, you lose about a second a lap, I'd say, between 7/10 to a second a lap. So I'd expect the gap between the Aries car and the Scuderia Monza car to close very quickly, but it doesn't mean that the pass is going to be any easier. Oh, as we see that Jack Stiles hits a GT4 through the kink coming up to the VLN chicane.
Yeah, that was Gamble. And I think he expected Gamble. Oh, yeah, there was miscommunication. You're going to see it here in just a moment. If we ride on board, you'll probably be able to very easily tell just why he made contact. Here it goes. We'll see this GT4 car weave back and forth.
The classic driving in your mirrors there. Like I said earlier, it's difficult when you got cars flying up behind you at 50, 60 miles an hour faster than you, feels like. But that's just the wrong thing to do there, unfortunately. Looks like Stiles got away with it, though. I don't see any damage to his car.
Looking at it now, yeah, from this angle, it looks pretty clean. So you're right, the 59 got quite lucky. And now, with about 1.5 seconds up to what is now the leader, as it looks like the Athena car has finally taken their stop. Statler has taken over for Johnson. We're looking at 8th for GTEs, and I think Grutering just got the spot. That was going by the likes of Jaeger. Just had a nice run coming out of Bilstein. As they break into the VLN chicane, it'll be an easy pass for the Porsche.
And remember that Jeff Jaeger, that Ferrari, still has a little bit of damage, so not the hardest pass in the world to make, but, you know, any pass you do through that corner still takes a little bit of effort.
Jaeger now into 9th now, but still running. And we've got an hour and 30 left to go, so anything can happen. Let's go to our leaders in the LMP2s because Jack Stiles has a run. He's got the inside. Masi, we know, is on older tires. They hit the brakes down into the corner, and Stiles seals the deal. That'll put the Aries car back on the top spot.
You know what? Another thing, Joe, that I forgot to mention last time we were talking about these two is that if you look at the front of these cars, you'll see the Scuderia Monza has one dive plane. Oh, as he locks up there into the Mercedes arena, while the TechSense fits the Motorsport Aries cars has two dive planes.
Oh,
so just that
we got a caution.
Oh, and here's the caution. Oh, this is going to change everything.
Oh. And let's see. I think, the only one left needing to pit, or that could maybe choose to pit here in our LMP2s, is Brox's in the switch at Topaz. Oh, and the Sector 5 car now this is the Blackhall car.
They were already in pit lane when the yellow flag came out.
Double checking on my replay to see what the pace car lights were doing. Looks like they're off on mine. Should come on any second now. There they go. So where was... Yeah, oh my goodness. It was right there. They were feet past the cones. So Dale Green has to thank his lucky stars, because if they would have been just a second or two behind, they would have gotten a black flag.
Now, the LMP2s had their pit window open just before now. I think everybody has taken their stop. It's been about between 7 laps for the TechSense car and about 2 laps for the Scuderia Monza car. So it's about a 5-lap difference between the two. But most importantly, the Scuderia Monza on old tires, I think they're a bit stuck out.
Sorry, switch at Topaz, who I was just going to point out was on 15 laps on their tire. They just abandoned their pit entry. If we go to a replay on the 19, they pulled Lewis Hamilton here. And I think you're allowed to get away with that.
I think you are too. There's no rule against that. I think you saw the pit lane entry close and then just panicked, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it should have been open yet. So great call, great heads up, especially if someone was in his ear shouting at him, don't.
Stay out.
In.
I've had that happen to me before. It was not, it was me just sort of getting the timing wrong, I suppose. I thought I was 1 lap further to the safety car than I actually was. And luckily my teammate just yelled, "What are you doing?"
Now here's where it
woke me up. Sorry,
here's where it's interesting though. We are almost exactly halfway. That is a giant question mark of whether or not we're going to get another caution. I mean, it could be more, it could be less incidents over the next hour and a half.
Well, I mean, cautions breed cautions, they say on ovals, but on road, I think because the way the cautions work on road courses in iRacing, you're going to have LMP2s intermingled with GT4s, intermingled with GTEs. They're not going to be separated out into classes here. So on the restart, they're all going to be trying to fight for position while trying to stay out of each other's way, and that's prime opportunity for incidents to happen there. Even worse than on a regular race start.
Looks like a Black Tree race crew pitted in. So Silvernail is taking service. Now that's going to be way too early to get to the end. As, what did we say? I think most of them made it, a max of about an hour 10 or something like that in these GTEs?
About an hour 8 for the longest running car, but I would say most GTEs last about an hour. About an hour plus or minus a minute or so.
And I just saw a question in the chat. Mad Mike, not the man of drifting fame, that is Mike Hurley. He's asking if that was a scheduled caution or if it was for an incident. Well, in this series, as we talked about at the beginning of the broadcast, there's a set amount of incident points for the entire field that will trigger a caution when you hit that amount of incident points. So whatever happened, someone got an off track, someone hit the wall, that hit the number, and that triggered the caution.
And that number now resets, and they can get another caution if they reach that number again. That's what we were just discussing, that we don't know if they're going to wind up getting another caution in this race. If it was farther in, a little bit farther in, I'd say it's highly unlikely, but the fact that, as we heard from Sai pointing out, that they're going to have a very perilous restart and could rack up a lot of incident points right there. That could make up for whatever time they would lose here under caution, where we shouldn't expect as many incident points, although they can count during this caution, as we did see, of course, the Switch It Topaz team duck off of the pit entry at the last second. That will definitely net you at least one incident point.
And speaking of the Topaz entry, they're in pit lane right now. I guess they decided that they had to wait one lap longer, but they were the furthest into their stint compared to all the other LMP2s, so this makes sense. But it's going to put them at the tail end of the field and they have to fight through all that traffic again. So it's going to lose them about 10-15 seconds on the restart alone.
Coming into the pits here, I see it's Andrew Mickey in that Grid Life iRacers bombshell racing team that we saw get disconnected from the lead after Buchanan's wheel failed. So suddenly, like you said, they have been saved by a caution, and a race that I thought was over for them, they might have thought was over for them. Suddenly they're back in it.
That looks like the CMS Racing 2 back out on track, Gamble back out. We should see all these GT4s be able to get to the end from here. CMS Racing Team 1, though, last pitted 9 laps ago. Interesting. So they must have stretched it longest of anybody. They maybe seem to think they can get to the end of this race from there or not. No, I wouldn't think so. That's just way too far. Maybe they're...
Each lap on this caution is about 3.5 minutes, Joe. So if we have a couple more laps, that's going to get us closer to about 1 minute, 20 minutes left. And that's, if they save fuel, they can maybe get to 120, maybe.
Well, and if they pit now, they're going to be at the tail of their field. So they don't want to do that. This is just such a strange call. Johnson really throwing the dice here, as I believe, lights are still on the pace car. So they need to go around for another lap and a half at least. My question mark is the Switch It Topaz team, who did come in. I'm trying to do the math in my head, which is always a dangerous thing on the channel. Can the 19 get to the end on one more pit stop versus everybody else, who I'm pretty certain will have to do at least 2?
I think you're right, Joe. I think they may be able to make it on one more stop. It'll be a full fuel stop, but I think you're right, because everybody else has been out on track for about 5 laps before the caution came out. With Domenico Massi being the last pitter with about 2 laps on the car when the caution came out. These cars can do about 40-41 minutes on a tank, and that's about 80 minutes. It's gonna be tight. If they go green this next time by, it's gonna be very tight.
They started this race in 4th. So, I mean, to be fair, if they're going to take a gamble, you might as well go for it and see if it nets you the win, because they didn't seem to have the pace in the qualifying. So maybe this will give them that upper hand. A note on that, I do see that the Texans Fitzai Athena team was in 3 laps ago versus the 4 of the Monza team. So they've got it even closer in that number 68. But again, as we pointed out, the Switch It Topaz is going to be super, super tight. So I don't think that we'll see one of those 2 manage to make it on a single more stop. We got a whole bunch of cars in, though.
And did I just see the lights on the pace car go out?
I believe they should have gone out this time, yeah? Yeah, lights are out.
And by the time they come back around, it's going to be around 1 hour, 19 minutes left. So it's going to be within the window, Joe, but it's going to be ever so tight.
XMB Race Design sends it into pit lane. I think they've become savvy to it. So they're going to get it 1 lap better than Switch It Topaz.
Yeah, that half liter or so might make the difference here. I'm betting everybody's clutching and coasting it right now.
When you're playing those games, you try to take whatever gains you can. See Glenn Papp in the Grizzly Motorsports TFR lap car has been stationary for a little bit here, but it looks like they actually did come in this time, but that'll send them to the back of their class. Chris Sherburne just exiting ahead of them. The Sector 5 Wild Blue Yonder car Return should be able to get to the tail of the train. I mean, if ever there was an appropriate track for getting the lap back and managing to get back into the race, this would be it. You think about Mark Webber and what he did here with the safety car, getting him back in the game. So I feel like that the Nurburgring giveth and the Nurburgring taketh, and it's not always the Nordschleife that does that. Sometimes it's this GP course as we ride on board with our leader Jack Stiles, who's getting ready to take the restart in about half a lap.
There's going to be 2 races basically in the LMP2 field. One is going to run like crazy, take the 2 stops perhaps, well, take the 1 stop and then take the splash and dash at the end, and hopefully they can cover that extra 15-20 seconds that they needed by the time the other cars can make it on 1 stop. That's assuming they can make it on 1 stop.
And Stiles is the one that's really got to hustle it the most, as he's on 10 laps into this stint. So he is absolutely going to have to take 2 more stops to finish this race. Can he go fast enough? He started it from the front row and since then has been one of the quickest on the track, but he does have to do one of his driver changes in there.
Well, driver changes can be completed while fueling, Joe, so I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem if they do it on the next stop. It's just a question of, is his second driver as quick?
As quick, and also has to hop into the car, not being used to any of the changes that have been made. If there's been any damage to the under tray, if the track feels different compared to what it was before. All those variables that his teammate might not be aware of. Gareth Mesham, that we mentioned earlier, probably going to be heading in for Jack Stiles. Now he's backed way off the pace car. He's got plenty of room here. So he's trying to give themselves some space to jump this start somewhat.
And here he goes.
Green flag is out. The 59 is on it as the pace car comes in. Very far spaced apart for our LMP2s. Look at that. I don't know why they kept each other so far away from each other.
A little bit of confusion here going on in the background as the GT cars and the rest of the field sort each other out, passing the GT4s. It's not quite pandemonium, but we have people passing, well, usually where they would.
Yes, certainly. And I see one car coming down pit lane, Andy Banfield with the Apex Racing 112. And that's way too early to make it to the finish in that GTE car. So not sure why the Ferrari is on pit lane. It could be for a penalty. They do have an incident limit here, where if they hit 20 incidents, then they have a drive-through penalty. So we'll go back and check on that as we take a look at all the GT cars absolutely mixed and gobbled together. This is watching the battle for second. Actually, the battle for the lead as well. That's Jonathan Bain. The middle finger racing car. No, excuse me, he's not in the lead. He is a lap down. That is second place James Walker trying to go by him. And he's certainly not lifting and letting him through quite easily here. Now he lets him by. Thomas Kircher's not going to like having that Chevy in between them temporarily. He's going to want to dispose of him so that he can hold on to the back of the 186. Now he's let through finally, but he's lost about 0.7 of a second.
Look at the gap Tom O'Gorman has. 14 seconds over the SimTV Bombshell Racing team. Just because of the gap they had and the cars they had in between them on the restart. That is an absolute mile.
And in GT4 too, we got a similar thing. Johnson and Schmelier, the 2 teammates, separated by 11 seconds at the start there. And Murphy Nichols a further 6 seconds behind, but the 6-second gap from Murphy Nichols is now a 5.5 second gap. So that car, if they can catch up to Schmelier and then maybe catch up to Johnson, they're back in it.
Yeah, the Grid Life iRacers Bombshell team going to check and see what their lap is like this time through. It was a 206.5 compared to the CMS Racing Team 2, a 207 flat. So yeah, about half a second quicker that time through. Can he keep that up though as we keep watching these GTE cars fighting for third and second place, being led by James Walker, Thomas Kircher following along with Matt Andrews in the train.
Remember that Mach 1 Esports car has older tires, so it's going to be interesting to see if he can keep up with the SimTV Bombshell Racing Team, which I believe have fresher tires as well.
And the driver with the oldest tires of our front runners in the GTEs is actually our leader. The Calvert Dynamics Bombshell car has 19 lap old tires right now. I wonder if they're trying to stretch it out to a 2-stop race here. It has given them quite a bit of a gap because of all those LMP2s between them. 14 seconds currently, and the GT4s, of course, as well, as he continues on one more lap, just about 10 more minutes. He should be able to stop and make it to the end from there. Oh, and a car came from off course. What was Brian Bennett doing? What in the world? Can we go to the 71 on a replay? At first, it almost looked like he came in from the Nordschleife. I was so confused for a moment. Here it is right here. I think he's going to go off on the entry to Coca-Cola. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, he skateboarded that exit curb there for certain.
Yeah, that was an ollie and a half. He almost sent it onto the Nordschleife, but there's just a pesky wall right there. It's
yeah, you can see where the front tires were lifted off the ground there, and his steering wheel was turned, but tires weren't on the ground. Looks like the car isn't damaged though, luckily.
It cost him a lot of spots. He's back running, but he's in 11th. And let's see. Actually, I think he was already a lap down. So yeah, it appears maybe he is a lap down compared to those who are around him on the track right now. Now, the next one in front of him is the Evolve SimSports SPB with Joey Haynes in the 124. So hopefully he'll be able to get back on that and try to catch up. A little farther up in 8th position, Torres being chased by Silvernail. So as our drivers work their way through the turn 11 and into the Bilstein complex, heading down to one of the lowest parts of the circuit. Climbs way back up for them. Right on board, this is Thomas, hometown boy, trying to see if he can get himself something a little better than a ninth. As this has been happening, I'm also keeping half an eye on second in the LMP2s because Statler is catching up to Massey.
Remember, Massey, I don't think... Massey's on old tires, I believe. And remember, he's on lower downforce as well to the TechSense guys. So I expect that Athena car to rocket past him as soon as he gets within draft range.
I'm seeing on my time and in scoring, it's 1 lap difference between their tires, so...
Well, remember, TechSense changed tires, and I believe Scuderia Monza didn't.
You're right, yeah, so there's the difference in the strategy. Good point. I had forgotten about that. And, as they continue on then, yeah, it's down to 9/10 of a second. So yeah, he is clawing forward onto the back of that 36 quite quickly. This is probably going to be a matter of time more than anything. And Styles is aware of what he needs to do to try and win this race. He set the fastest lap of the race last time by.
Now the Aries and Athena car are in good positions right now because they are on fresher tires, which means they don't need to change tires for the final pit stop, while Scuderia Monza does. So it was a bit of a poor decision making, or just unlucky for them for when the caution came out. But the Scuderia Monza car will need to change tires on next stop and lose another 20 seconds or so. So now it's going to be a question of, is the Switch a Topaz car, the XMB Race Design car, are they going to be able to catch the Texans, Fitzy, Motorsport, Aries, and Athena cars just on not having to stop twice.
Well, I'm sure if they had the engineers and the computers to try and crunch the numbers, they'd be doing so furiously, but this is not like F1, and many of these drivers don't necessarily have an entire team behind them to try and figure that sort of stuff out. As they go through Dunlop and Statler, trying to see if he can find something on Massey, but as quickly as he rocked up to the back of that 36, he's certainly not going by as fast.
Like I said, dirty air is dirty air. He just needs to get a good run, especially as those tires have cooled off during the safety car period. Needs to bring them back up to temp. And then, while it's been a couple laps, those tires can take a little bit of wearing. As look, going down the straight, he is reeling him in now.
Does he dare into the chicane? No, oh, but he's going to make a little bit of contact into the back of the 36. Statler maybe a little bit too eager. He did have the front arrow taken off, being right up underneath that rear wing. Hard to tell with the cars in front. Does he have any sort of damage on the nose? It's not looking like it from this angle.
Well, the Scuderia Monza car doesn't have quite as much downforce, which explains why they were braking earlier on top of having worn out tires. So I think, as he goes wider through the Mercedes arena, it kind of just locks up there quite easily. It's just strange.
Well, that lets him through finally. So Statler now into P2.
Texans, Fitzy, Motorsport 1-2. Definitely a good day for the team. Now they just need to hold on to it.
Yeah, certainly looking quite handy. Jack Stiles, though, still needs to hand over that car to his teammate. Should have time in the next pit stop. There we see him on screen now. The Texans Fitzy Aries machine working its way through the kink, back up and towards the final chicane. Now that that pass has taken place, let's head back to 8th in the GTEs. We were looking at this a little bit earlier. Silvernail and Torres fighting for this spot. They come through the opening hairpin and the Haug hook. So they then switch directions and head into the Mercedes arena. Watching from on board, Silvernail's Porsche looking back at the BMW of Torres's Hard Promises Racing 117. Joey, it's starting to feel like things are really settling in, though. We played up this restart as being so dramatic and potential chaos, and it unfolded, I'd say, somewhat uneventfully, and now it just feels like everybody's kind of in a rhythm.
Yep, everyone definitely in a rhythm, and it seems like pretty much everyone is running essentially single file right now, but as we start to see the classes merge back together again, as everyone starts lapping at their own pace, we are starting to see a little bit of interesting dynamic, especially with these GT battles, the GT4 battles that are coming up. I think we'll start getting some excitement very soon.
I suspect excitement's maybe the last thing a few of them want. As we continue to watch Torres try to chase on Silvernail. Can't quite get as close. Needs to be definitely closer than that. In fact, he seems to struggle coming off of Coca-Cola. We heard Cy talking about it, that these Porsches just have incredible launches coming off of slow turns with that mechanical grip on the rear tires. Big lockup down into Haug hook. Torres maybe tried a bit too hard to make up for the shortcomings of that Bimmer.
Well, the Bimmer's strength is being able to nail those curbs, and there aren't too many curbs around this track. The only ones really being the ones in the Schumacher S, and maybe you could count the ones in the chicane as well, the VLN chicane. But that's the biggest things here, and honestly, they don't gain you that much time.
Another lockup in front of him, though. That time we saw the puff of smoke come from Silvernail, but just a tiny one from the 75 as he extends himself farther and farther away from the 117. Oh! And another one. Maybe not. Silvernail feeling a little bit of the pressure.
Yeah, the bait there can really catch you out if you're late on the brakes. The inside of the track just falls away from you. The inside tire just locks incredibly easily.
It retains that
That's a
9/10
late dive from the LMP2.
Yeah, that was Jack Stiles. Well, and we've talked about this. He's got to hustle to make sure and cover himself off so that the likes of XMB and Switch It don't manage to jump them in the pit cycle. He's got 21 seconds currently over Athena, the sister car, running well behind them on slightly younger tires, passing the pits this time through. Jack Stiles keeps it out. Do you think they would try and run it as long as possible here, Cy? Do you think Jack would try and keep the car out, or would he try to split it into even parts?
Well, the car feels best on low fuel, so I would try to split it up into equal parts. But the counter to that is, if they still need to do a driver change, I'm not entirely sure if they've met the minimum driver requirements. But if they do have to still change drivers, I think they're taking full time.
That's a fair point. They don't want to cut it short and cost themselves on the driver time. They do still need to change. Most of the numbers I've seen are 60-40. And I don't think, especially with the experience of the Texans Fitstye teams, they know what they need to do in terms of driver. I can't imagine that they've slept on that one.
Well, stranger things have happened even in real life, Joe. So
It's true.
especially if they're really happy about getting a team 1-2 and they're all celebrating prematurely, it could slip their mind if they haven't planned it out beforehand.
Things are getting a little tight for second of the GT4s, Joey. It looks like Nichols has been reeling in Christopher.
Yeah, Murphy Nichols has been quite a bit faster than Christopher Schmiller so far. That gap has gone from about 6 seconds at one point. It's now 0.3 of a second. He's going to look to see if he can make a move down into turn one. I think he's going to think about it.
Christopher's going to give him space. The CMS Racing Team 2 car, though, doesn't give it up, finds grip around the outside of the Haug hook and will retain P2.
And as these two battle, the leader in this class, currently Jordan Johnson, and the other CMS Racing car, pulling that gap up to 18 seconds. So even if Nichols is able to dispatch of Schmiller, he's got a big old task to do to catch the leader.
And it's just not worked out, unfortunately. Of course, as we said, if we get another caution, that could bring them back together, or it could separate them farther apart, as we don't know if the leader will be between them in terms of lapping. And that will be incredibly unfortunate if that's the case, breaking up what is shaping up to be a fascinating battle. Just lets that Corvette down through. Well, we're getting close to the 2/3 mark. Why don't we run down our running order out here on the track and try and give a refresher for our audience on what's going on in the championship, since we've got the opportunity right now. And up at the front of it all, leading both the points and this race, is Jack Stiles in the Texas Fitstye Motorsports Aries machine. He's been in the car since the drop of the green, has yet to hand it over, but they still have time to do so. They're leading by 20 some odd points, 24 points over the Athena car, which is actually behind them on track as well. 22 seconds back there to Harold Statler, who has taken over for his teammate Benjamin Johnson. So they are good to go, at least driver-wise, to the finish. Now, the Scuderia Monza team sits fourth in the championship, but third on the track right now. And they are actually in a fight for the third spot in the points by about 4 points separating them with Switch It Topaz, which is fascinating because they're actually right next to each other on track, well, at least in terms of position, not necessarily physically. Switch It Topaz is back there in fourth with about 15 seconds to go to get up to them. As they sit between third and fourth, there's only a 2-point swing there, so that's not going to be enough for Switch It to lose it to Monza as they sit. Then finally back in fifth, XMB Race Design are currently 8th position in the points, it appears. Well down the order. And them currently sitting in fifth is not doing them any favors, but we do know that they are in an alternate strategy as they have come in pit very late on the last caution, trying to get themselves to the front with a single pit stop to the finish. What about the top 5 and the GTEs on track here, Sai? How are they sitting?
Well, of course, the leaders we have Tom Gordon in the Calvert Dynamics Bombshell racing car, which is leading in the championship as well. If the race ends as it is right now, they take home the win. Behind them, it gets a little bit more interesting. The Evolve Titanium, I believe, the Evolve SimSports Titanium sits quite a far ways back in fifth in class. The Evolve Titanium and the TechSense Hades car are both tied for second place in points, but they are only separated by 1 position on track. That is enough for the Hades car to get second in the championship if they finish ahead of the Titanium car, which seems very likely because there's almost a minute between them on the track at the moment. Behind them we have the Mach 1 Esports car, 10 points behind the leaders and 9 points behind the Titanium and the Hades car. If they finish as it is, they're going to gain, but they're not going to flip the positions, unfortunately. Then we have Sector 5, Friction, who I believe are not here, unfortunately, the Apex, and Speedworks. So I believe the top 3 are basically locked in for the GTE Championship, but the actual positions can still flip very, very easily. What about the GT4s?
Well, in GT4s, it's been a battle between the CMS Racing cars and the Grid Life iRacers Bombshell Racing Team cars. Right now, it is Jordan Johnson in the CMS Racing Team number 1 car in the lead now, and will be in the lead of the championship, assuming it stays this way. In second place is the number 286 from the Grid Life iRacers Bombshell Racing Team. They were leading the championship coming into this, but after this race, if they do finish second, I believe that'll be them losing the championship, and the team in third, CMSRacing.com Team 3, will stay in third. And then the rest of the top 5, there's only 5 cars running in this class. The second of the Grid Life iRacers Bombshell Racing Team teams, piloted by John D. Nichols at the moment, hanging out in fourth. And the last car running on the track is the Section 8 car, driven by Robert Gamble.
And with that, we've passed the 2-hour mark in this race, less than 1 hour to go. I believe we're going to take a real short break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll come back with the final portion of the finale here in the Majors Team Endurance Challenge. Stick around because we still don't know who is going to come away with the win here today. Welcome back to the Nurburgring. This is the last round of the season for the Majors Team Endurance Challenge. It is all up for grabs in the championship. And currently, Jack Stiles, who leads the LMP 2 points, is also leading the race in that class with less than an hour to go. Same with the Calvert Dynamics Bombshell Racing Team. The 188 with Tom O'Gorman in the car is leading the championship and leading this race, but he needs to hop out of this car soon. And then down in the GT4s, it is CMSRacing.com Team 1 with Jordan Johnson up at the front by a full 20 seconds ahead of those behind him. The 178 with 1 hour left to go as that Champion Motorsports BMW up at the front. We're going to check out the battle here between Nichols and Christopher. This is for second place with a few tenths splitting the pair of them.
With how fast Nichols was when he was chasing Schmillier, I expected him to pull away, but no, it's just he's getting hunted down by that much bigger BMW. It literally does look like a tiny little animal being chased by a predator, and Murphy Nichols hasn't put a foot wrong yet, but it's definitely frightening.
We're watching from the rear bumper of Nichols as Christopher keeps on him. Jack Stiles just came in. So the Fitzai Aries car taking a stop and definitely will need at least one more. In fact, it looks like it'll be just a splash and dash.
Yep, it's going to be about 10 minutes of fuel, which is going to be a little bit more than a splash, I would say. But, and they're going to change drivers as well. Looks like Gareth Mesham is getting into the car. Now it's a question of, let's see if the Topaz cars, how close the Topaz cars get by the time he comes out of pit lane.
That's a good point. That's Crescentini in the car right now in the 19. He is just coming out of the final corner, and Mesham is still stationary. Crescentini is by.
Just as Christian. Oh, and I think. Oh, never mind. Sorry, false alarm. I was looking at the wrong car. But I was about to say, I thought Mesham is taking an awful long time in the pit lane. Did they change tires as well?
They did. They took a full stop.
That's interesting. It seems a bit unnecessary considering they took tires on the last pit stop. But I guess when you're handing off to a different driver, I guess fresh equipment is always necessary.
That's a good point, yeah. Well, and he's got to try and be on it from the word go, because it looks like now that the times are settling out on our scoring, he's about 21 seconds back. So they both got to make one more stop. Granted, the Aries car, probably a shorter stop than Crescentini's. Is that going to be enough for them to regain and overtake that Switch It Topaz car? You can see he's having to deal with traffic immediately. Jonathan Bain in the middle finger at 198, having to stay off to the side through Ford. There is Crescentini. The Switch It car still has, about 6 or 7 more laps of fuel in it at least?
This is going to be very tight. The difference right now is about 7 seconds between the Aries and the Topaz car. And I think a trip through pit lane plus a little bit of fuel is about the same. Maybe a little bit more. So I think Mesham has a lot of work to do. He needs to close the gap to at least, he needs to catch the Topaz car at the very least before the Topaz car pits for the final stop. Otherwise, he's not going to have a shot at all.
Great ride on the roof here. Looking towards the final chicane. Mesham. Let's watch his lap times once he gets full laps in. This one won't count, obviously, as he exited from pit lane this time. But watching his pace could wind up being important. As he crosses the line down towards Haug Hook. Still waiting on 2 cars to pit who have yet to come in, including Statler and Massey. And the 68 and the 36, 22 and 23 laps on their tires, respectively. There you see the Athena car. Go ahead, sorry.
And now talking about incidents, I don't think we've had too many since the restart What do you think the odds are of having another yellow flag before the end of the race here?
Well, with how clean that restart was, yeah, it's not seeming as likely, but we also haven't been watching every single car, so difficult to tell.
It
Right.
would rob us of an interesting strategy battle if the yellow flag did come out, because it would effectively mean everybody could go to the end of the race who has pitted already.
I mean,
So I would say-
what would be most interesting is if it came in the middle of the pit stops and caught some of them out.
That would really shake things up. That'd be a race ruiner for some people, I'd assume.
I think so too. Now down to nearly 45 minutes left to go. And as we watch Statler, who has taken over for Benjamin Johnson, lead the race. He's going to have to hand that over eventually. We don't anticipate the Athena car will remain in the lead. Gregory Hectus has taken over for David Hall. We haven't mentioned that. And he's got a little bit of a fight as the Middle Finger Racing 198 is all over the back of him. Coming up to Coca-Cola is Chevy versus Ferrari here, as the Corvette tries to get past that Italian machine.
The Ferrari is known for being quick in a straight line, but the Corvette seems to have really good power. I'd say the gap is staying the same. It wasn't gaining too much in the draft, but we know the Corvette's been very strong in the corners here, so we'll have to keep an eye on the gap in the Mercedes arena just to see how much the Black Tree Race Crew could, or rather the Middle Finger Racing Crew could reel in the Elite West USA car.
That's a good view of that Corvette coming out of the Mercedes arena. Behind them, they've got Brett Trocine approaching. Now the question is, where is he going to catch them? And will this cause a little bit of a buffer? Obviously, if he has to put himself between them on a very short straight, that could cost some time to Jonathan Bain. As they head their way down into the Dunlop hairpin. Yeah, he's going to stay back. He's going to wait for the right time. He's not racing anybody right now, so Trocine just trying to make sure that he doesn't ruin this fight.
He's losing a lot of time though, but this is all fuel that he's saving. Not the most efficient way to save, but I guess it's situational, I suppose. Oh, he's still gonna wait. He's letting these guys battle it out. I think. Well, he's a very courteous LMP driver. I'll give him that.
I mean, if you gotta save it one way or another, might as well do it where you were going to lose time in the first place. So there he goes. Now he's through.
Puts it up on the curb. That's dangerous for those LMP cars.
Oh, that did put, unfortunately, Hectus a little bit offline on braking, as he almost got into the back of Trocine there for a moment. So Bain's still right up tight behind that Ferrari. They come onto the front stretch once more. By the way, as I take a look at Mesham's times, he's run 144s consistently these first two laps. 144.7s, actually, specifically. And I see a few faster laps for Jack Stiles. But again, this is probably, I would assume, on full fuel, so probably not the best representation of what he can do.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but hasn't the track warmed up since we last checked it?
Let's see. 81 degrees Fahrenheit. We are up about 15 degrees, 12 degrees, yeah, since the start.
It's not a whole lot, but it's definitely going to make a difference, especially on new tires sort of bring up. Oh, big moment. Did you see that through the Schumacher S, getting up on that curb? If we get an onboard of that, that was some quick hands.
I just happened to be looking away, so I'd love to see this. That's honestly probably why I tend towards these lower downforce cars. These high downforce cars having a snap like that just scare the willies out of me.
He just nibbled the left front on that curve in the Schumacher S's and then wanted to get away from him there. Excellent hands. Excellent hands.
My nerves just can't handle moments like that at that speed. And it looks like Tom O'Gorman has finally handed over that lead Corvette as Kurt Crum hops in. James Walker stays out, so he'll inherit the lead momentarily. And look at that. It is just spotless. There is not a dent on that car.
I think it's been the most consistent car all race, I would say. And
I would say that there isn't even a crumb of dirt on that thing.
Oh, boo.
Thank you, Ebenezer. As we see Spencer Todd getting into that car for Evolve Sim Sports Titanium. That's Kevin Hill, who has just hopped out. And Todd actually did the first stint on that one, so he's taking back over as they've split the strategies on that one. Crum is returning in third position.
This is something we had to get clarified by the race control, by the way, because we initially thought that the Calvert Dynamics Bombshell Racing team had overstayed, had kept Tomo Gorman too long in the car, as the rules stated, and we had to look this up during the break. The rules stated the AM driver has to do at least 60% of the race. Unfortunately, we thought that Tom O'Gorman was a pro driver, so we apologize for that mistake. And Kurt Crum is the platinum driver in that car, so Kurt had to wait for basically the last stint to get his turn to drive the car. But I'd say Tom O'Gorman certainly doesn't drive like an amateur.
No, that's for sure. Boy, things got close there. Hectus almost found himself overtaken down into the Dunlop hairpin. Domenico Massi in the Scuderia Monza car takes a stop. This looks doable though for the 36.
We didn't expect it, but he's pitted at around 41 minutes to go. If this race goes a lap longer, he's going to be kicking himself, that's for sure, as Steve Libretto gets in the car.
Alrighty. So it's tight, but it's doable. And if they get a caution, it absolutely is doable. That will save them plenty of fuel. But it sends them to the back of the field. Looks like Wayne Hutchison has just taken a stop and is back in. Where is he? Yeah, there he is in the 117. This is in 9th position and with a whole lot of clear track around him. My goodness. So Libretto moving and looks like full fuel and tires as Harold Statler now for the Athena car pits as well.
So it looks like the Athena car definitely can make it to the end from here. Now, we were all talking about the XB race design and the Switch and Topaz cars for pitting under caution to make it to the end. I'm impressed that they've been able to save fuel this well and make it to 40 minutes.
And Topaz is in as well. But the downside is, at least for the Switch It and the X and B teams, is I think they were banking on the other teams not being able to make it to make that extra stop. But it does appear that a few of them were able to get it to go as long as they needed. And they essentially gave up track position for that one. So as Broxas gets in the car for Crescentini, they've switched back and forth multiple times now. This is the third driver change, I guess, that they've had.
Yeah, it looks like they do one stint, and then whenever they change the tires, they hand it off to the next driver, which makes sense to me.
And keep them fresh, I suppose. And Statler is back out on track in second behind Mesham. I guess Mesham is the only one we're pretty certain can't get to the end.
That is correct, and he's only about 10 seconds ahead of his sister car.
Well, this is honestly pretty bad news for them then, I would think. That puts the ball squarely in the court of the 68. They look the most likely to be able to take this victory at this point.
So what the Aries car has to do is push really hard and make the race go an extra lap.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be an interesting strategy. I wonder if they should be able to do that. I wonder what the laps are like. Mesham down to 143s in one of the laps and a 44.3 after that. So he's still running pretty consistently in the 44s. Statler in his stints, a bit all over the place. I think traffic has been playing havoc with his times, unfortunately. Oh, and we had an incident. Joey, what's happened to Nichols down to the GT4s?
Murphy Nichols was running second, but looks like the LMP2 of Steve Libretto just locked it up a little bit. We're going to see a replay here. You can see it's a little bit earlier. Nichols
is just turn 1, I believe.
Yeah.
So is this, well, this is the 286. Let's see. Yeah, I think this might be it. Yep, this will be it, coming into the first corner. And
Nichols just seeing those cars coming into the pits. Wide open track, but you can see coming through. Was it through the final corner, or was it a car leaving the pits? We'll have to see as we go down the straight here.
Pits.
No, there it is. There's Libretto. And I think it was just a lockup on the inside. Yep.
He came from a long ways back. I can totally understand Murphy not expecting that car to be there.
Yeah, that was a big dive. I remember a highlights reel where David Hobbs once called Adam Carroll a dork for pulling a move like that. I won't do the same thing, but it has caused Murphy Nichols to come back into the pits, probably for the final stop of the race. I remember a little bit of strategy chatter. We didn't know who was going to pit and who was going to go to the end in this class. It looks like Murphy's using this to take a stop.
Mueller in the meantime
maybe 1
back.
minute. Go ahead.
I was going to say Mueller back in for Trocine. That's what we see on screen for the XMB car. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, coming out of the first yellow flag, or the only yellow flag so far, we thought that 1 minute 20 was doable for the GT4s, but maybe it was just a step too far. Maybe that's probably why we've been having we had rather Nichols come back into the pits.
About the only race that hasn't seemed like it has had some strange twists and turns in terms of strategy is the GTEs, which we are still waiting on a few drivers to pit in. James Walker for SimTV Bombshell. Well, one of them just came in. Matt Andrews for the Fitstye Hades cars. He's taken over for Stanley a little bit earlier in this race. Let's see if he stays in it. He pulls to a halt. Driver hits his marks nice and clean. Yeah, they're going to make another driver change. So, Aaron Stanley back into the car. So now that leaves just that SimTV Bombshell car. He needs to come in 25 laps since their last pit stop. We're doing about 150, so a couple more laps before he needs to give up the ghost and hand it back over. Now, let's see though. It's going to be a pretty short last stint, though, for that SimTV Bombshell car. And it's about 52 seconds currently between themselves and the Calvert Dynamics car. Could he maybe just give that a little bit of a splash, get out there, and at least be in contention for the lead?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure if if Walker pitted during the yellow flag. I don't remember a lot of GTEs pitting, but he could have been one of them. And this might be paying dividends now.
On screen, that was the pass for 9th place. Oetzel managing to get by Hutchison. Hutchison just recently got into the car. Been sharing it with two other drivers. One of the rare cases in this race. Actually, 3 other drivers, I think. No, 2 others, because Torres was in twice already. Kuhn hopped in for a stint. Now it's Hutchison in the BMW. That's just Crum going by.
And talking about the strategy we had at the front of the LMP2 field, Messam, sorry, I almost said Gresham. Messam has put about 8 seconds on his teammates since they came out of the pits. The gap is up to 18 seconds now. So he's really trying to cover off that splash and dash.
Interesting. Can the 59 do it? Is he quick enough? Will traffic play well with him? you have to consider how much of a roll of the dice it is on where you catch each car when, and if that'll slow him up enough that it could cost him the victory. Is it going to be that close? 32 minutes left to find out here in the last race of the season, and it has been absolutely fascinating. You see the gap between them. Yet another lap faster for Mesham. 43.1 versus Stadler to 46.4. Holy cow.
I think Stadler had a little bit of traffic that lap, but like you said, the difference in the pace is absolutely astronomical at the moment. We only looked away for about 5 or 6 laps, and the gap was up 8 seconds.
That might just be doable. So Stadler himself is gonna have to try and hustle. He's already got 4 laps. Oh! And 2 of our LMP2s into each other down at the Dunlop hairpin. That is Dick Mueller in the XMB who gets in with Mesham, and that takes away so much of that gap he worked hard to try and earn. Another look at this one. Can we get a shot from above? Try and figure out what happened. Felt like Murray Walker for a moment. My goodness, just completely caught me by surprise.
Oh, looks like Dirk was just trying to slot in behind and locked up the brakes. Did not realize what happened there.
Unbelievable. That took away those 8 seconds we were just saying that Mesham had gotten himself. Oh, he's got to be so frustrated. Not going to be sending Christmas cards to Mueller and Trocine, I fear.
Certainly. Well, I believe even if he did finish second in the standings, he would still win the championship overall. So it's not too terrible. As long as he didn't get terminal damage, he still would have won the championship as far as I can tell. But obviously, like I said earlier, racers have egos. They want to win the race.
Jordan Johnson is in. So our CMS Racing Team 1 car taking their last stop of the race. I still see Christopher Kmueller out there and 24 laps on his, along with John Nichols and Robert Gamble. So I wonder if we'll see those 3 eventually take one last stop in this race. Johnson waiting patiently for everything to finish up, and he's on his way.
Let's see how far ahead he'll be of Murphy Nichols in the car that got punted a few laps ago. You can see Murphy Nichols just in the back there.
Oh man, so if Murphy hadn't have had that issue, he may have been right with him. The gap between them now that they settle in is just about 3.5 seconds.
Now the only question left is, will Team 2 with Christopher Schmillier end up pitting one more time, or are they good until the end?
It would be, what, about 35 laps or something like that? Maybe even more than that. I'll have to try and figure out, again, math never our strong suit sometimes, so... It seems like a lot of laps, though. I'm not sure that he'd be able to do that. That is our 8th place driver, Daniel Stevens, Middle Finger Racing, just kind of waiting for his chance to sneak on through. Now he's going to be able to get a clear track on down as we hop on the nose. Gives you a real sense of speed. I love those low shot cams. Well, we said earlier things settled into a rhythm. Now they really do, because not many are within striking range to try and make overtakes at this point, and it's kind of a hurry up and wait situation to see how the strategy plays out between our drivers with 27 minutes left to go on the clock in the last race of the season. And then plenty of them on top of it have been thrown curveballs. Drivers like Mesham Lefitstai Aries, who got spun around just a couple laps ago, lost valuable time. And then, of course, as we mentioned, Murphy Nichols, who got punted off, is still chasing Jordan Johnson and has actually been gaining. He could have himself a chance as both of them are able to get to the end from here. Nichols, if he sticks with it, is going to have to try and make an overtake on track, but it's not impossible.
Johnson did seem to be a little bit faster on the previous stint, but it just seems like for these first couple laps after Johnson pitted, Nichols has the advantage, but will he be able to hold on to that advantage and actually catch up to Johnson? And will either of them get by Schmelier once he pits?
We got to wait for Johnson to come around for a full lap, which he's on right now, to really get a sense of how he and Nichols compare. It takes a long time for the GT4s to get around this course. It's made for Formula One cars.
And I've just seen in the chat Chris Taylor and the team say that Team 2 are going to the end, or at least they're going to try their best to. So it's going to be tight, but they've got a 17.7 second lead. They can save a lot of fuel probably. This will be interesting.
And they're doing 2-minute 5 lap times when they were doing around 2-minute 3s before, so they're saving a lot of fuel on track as well.
And we mentioned that this was attempted at, and successfully so, at Road Atlanta. So I'm not too shocked. It's just going to be a bit nervy, I'm sure, for all involved, with that gap steadily coming down as these last few minutes progress to 0. So, 6th place, Hectus, and a battle with Silvernail, who takes a look down into Valvoline once again. Not often that passes work, but he shakes him. And Silvernail's going to get into 6th as Hectus finds himself outbraking into 4th.
A little bit of celebratory weaving there, sort of showing dominance. I made you mess up, and I know it.
Let's take another look at this one. Been surprised. Hectus has been really good this season here in the Majors and Team Endurance Challenge. Just sent it in and made sure that he didn't make contact with the car. So focused on his mirrors, that green and white Ferrari found itself offline and hands it over. Okay, so valuable information. Gamble was on pretty much the same pit strategy as John Nichols and Camiller in the 179, but he just came into the pits. So he doesn't seem to feel confident that he can make it, but he also doesn't have the same pressure that the CMS Racing 2 team does.
That car also looks a little bit more beat up.
Yeah, the GT4 Porsche, unfortunately, sporting a little bit of war damage. So, and, well, I thought Gamble was hopping out of the car for a second. Must just been a connection issue for a brief moment. You know, we talked about the leader of our GTEs, the 186. They're now on lap 31, still haven't come in yet. And they've got about a 54-second lead over Crum. Crum just went by the pit entry himself. Now, the one that sticks out to me here is Tom Huggan in the Mach 1 Esports. Had one of the earliest stops other than Walker, but should definitely be good to go. The 163 is running in 3rd. How far behind? He's about a minute behind Walker. So Walker could actually find himself falling down to 3rd, potentially. It depends on how long he has to stay stationary to take that fuel. Hearing from the stewards, they're not thinking it's likely that we'll get another caution. But, again, you never know. Maybe we'll have a giant schmozzle somewhere in there. A lot of drivers get into one another. 4Xs rack up quickly.
They might be saving their 1Xs for the end of the race.
Very true.
I know I've used that strategy before, particularly at a certain track that starts with S and ends with Pa.
Well, and also, it's worth pointing out that they don't have a grace period where they're not going to throw a caution. If drivers do start using those 1Xs at the end, we could have a caution on the final lap of the race.
Well, I guess Messam is going to start putting his left sides in the dirt on every exit now, if that's the case.
Somehow, I think the race organizers would not look kindly on Gareth if he tried that strategy.
But speaking of Messam, he has put that 8 seconds he lost and gained them all back again. The lead is now 20 seconds to his sister car. Amazing lap times.
16 to go. As I just heard it's Dick Mueller who is in. I was going to say, pit lane had somebody down there, so the 30 comes in. This might actually be for a penalty, for an incident penalty, I think. Yeah, he's going straight through. Oh, boy. Farther down the order. Well, he didn't go farther down the order. He's already last. Yeah. Farther away from libretto because of that. Joey, you keep spotting all these incidents between the GT4s and the LMP2s. What's happening now?
Yeah, it seems like they've saved all these incidents for the last third of the race. This time it was Jordan Johnson who took a little bit of a punt from Stadler in the arena section. So he's fallen from second to third. And now it's Murphy Nichols up to second, hoping to take advantage. If maybe the leader runs out of fuel, Nichols will be in the lead instead of Schmiller's teammate.
Yeah, that's a good point. Johnson, if he's aware, if his team is on the radio for him, probably urging him on to see if he can catch up to Nichols to make sure and keep him honest, because if Christopher can't make it, then it's, of course, down to Johnson to try and carry the flag for Champion Motorsports. Minutes left to go. 3 hours of racing. 5 rounds that the drivers have had to deal with. And what an evolution it has been. It started out a little crazy. This is quite a combination of cars. We saw, I believe, 2 cautions in the first race. And this one, it'll be very close if we get to. We had 1 in the last one. And what began as quite a frantic mess of trying to dodge slower classes has become a beautiful dance between those LMP2s, the GTEs, and the GT4s. Does Hectus have some sort of damage on the car, or is... No, he doesn't look like he's saving fuel. He should be able to make it to the end. He's only on 9 laps. But he's been falling backwards. Daniel Stevens is now running up to him. It's got it down to 1.7 seconds, and last time it was a 1:55.1 for Greg. Daniel with a 52.2, so obliterating his lap times.
Well, it looks like the Elite West USA car, Hectus, looks like they did a splash and dash last time in pit lane just to fuel, well, the middle finger racing of Daniel Stevens took tires, which is probably why they're closing so quickly.
If they're regretting that.
Somebody ducks into pit lane right behind them.
That's Sherburne. Yeah, he's on 31 laps. Okay. Whereas Walker's on 34.
And Sherburne hits the wall coming into pit lane, locking up the tires. Unfortunate.
I was just going to say that we went the whole race without doing that I talked about in the pre...
Oh, Chris is going to love us for this one. No, wait a minute.
It gets off the corner well, but now he just misjudges the braking zone and the rear lets go.
Oh, okay. So this was completely different from what I was worried about. But nonetheless, he found the arm coat. And thankfully, it's virtual, so he doesn't have to pay for that bit of replacement. Back to Hectus once again. And Stevens already passed him before we even get over here. This just happened in the Mercedes Arena, the exit of the Mercedes Arena. We're going to watch it. And to be fair, it looks like Greg was kind of put off by Mesham, who overtook him in the midst of that. There you see him on screen.
That was a very opportunistic move, I'll say that. Just sort of followed the LMP2 through.
It's a nice little ring to it, like a certain song. Follow the LMP2. Follow the LMP2. Man, when are we going to see Walker and Mesham in? Walker just went by pit entry, so he's going around for another lap. We're on 35. Here's Mesham. He's on 18 laps. He still has a few more under his belt that he can go.
And he is 27 seconds out of his teammate. I think he's covered to stop the splash and dash and then some. He probably going to jump them. I don't actually. Let me rephrase that. I think the Athena car is not going to jump them when they do the splash and dash. Let's assume the Athena car can go to the end as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. Are we able to see the 59? Maybe. I don't think they should, because they stopped so early. Here's Statler coming around the bend and onto the front stretch. So I guess question then, Cy, is it better to pit a little bit early for the Aries car so that they have time to try and make it up if they have to try and overtake, or do you go as long as possible?
I would say that's pretty traffic dependent, Joe. I mean, if you're going to catch a ton of traffic and you know you're going to lose like 5 seconds just in traffic alone by passing GT4s and GTEs, I'd say go ahead and pit. But if you have clean track ahead of you, get those laps in on low fuel, you know, and try to get the gap as big as possible, because passing is so hard right here, especially the LMP2s, that even if you have fresh tires, it might take a lap or two. That's not a lap, and that's a lap or two you don't have at the end of the race.
Ride on board with Gareth. Took over after Jack Stiles finished his stint. Looks like Speedworks just finished their stop. Joseph Utzel is running back to the track in that Porsche. The 133 returns in 12th. Unfortunately, just shy, about 15 minutes short of making it to the end. Do not know who is going to be able to run away with this one. We're anxiously waiting to see who stops when.
I was about to ask, the SimTV Bombshell Racing team have to pit, right? We've gone over this, I think, but there's no way they can make it to the end of the race from when they pitted, I believe. It's been 36 laps.
I think so. 7 more laps. No, it'll be about 8 or 9 more laps before they're done. And that'll put them on 40-plus laps. Has anybody been able to do that in the GTEs?
Well, we saw one team that went to around an hour and 8 minutes. But that's still long. That's still shorter than when they pitted. That's shorter than the amount of time they had when they pitted. So in my mind, there's no way. But it might put the Calvert Dynamics car in a bit of a pinch here, especially if they can just put no fuel in the car effectively, because it's such a short splash and dash from where they are right now.
Well, welcome to the commentator side of things, where you make predictions that you are so certain about, and then everybody proves you wrong on the track. Never fails. We feel like we've done our research and we know our stuff, and then somebody is able to pull the impossible. As Walker with his minute lead, there it goes. All right, now he's in.
Now this will be very interesting. As that lead ticks down, that Calvert Dynamics Bombshell Racing Team Corvette narrows the gap. How much fuel are they going to have to put in this thing for 13 minutes of racing? It's not going to be a lot, but is it going to be enough to close that gap?
Oh boy, Kurt Crum only just coming to turn 11 now. Walker looking for his pit stall. There he hits it. Should just be fuel, no tires needed on this one. Crum now coming through the kink and already off and on his way. Walker's rolling. He's past the pit exit. Yeah, he is well clear of Kurt Krum. He's got this under control.
That was an excellent plan from the SimTV Bombshell Racing team. Absolutely worked to perfection. I believe they just won the race, the GTEs. Well, no, I'm not going to say that. I didn't say that.
Also, welcome to the commentator's curse. We get to put this one on you if this goes awry.
Uh-oh. It's not like I know them or anything.
Kurt Krum, as the time comes down, looks like he is roughly 21 seconds or so behind, 22 seconds. Yeah, so that's quite a gap. It will take something catastrophic, to be fair, for the 186 to lose this one at this point. With only 12 minutes to go on top of things. The CMS Racing Team 2 are still out there as well on 33 laps for theirs, with a 21-second gap.
Yeah, Nichols hasn't been able to catch Schmelier at all. I thought he would be faster because that car would have to be saving fuel, but every time he would make up time, he would just run into an LMP2 trying to lap him or something else that was just unfortunate. And that's actually allowed Jordan Johnson to close that gap up as well. That gap between them now only about 2 seconds, so Johnson could be fighting back to second here.
What I love about this, though, is it does appear that CMS has split their strategies. They've covered it off. One of them's got to work, hopefully anyways. Granted, Johnson, if he finishes behind Nichols, that didn't technically work, but we'll see. As he comes onto the front stretch, Murphy still holding P2. It's down to 1.3 seconds now. Johnson is absolutely on it. Keeping an eye on that Aries machine. They've still got a little bit before they come around to the pit entry on lap 22 for their fuel stint.
We've seen people do 24 laps on a fuel stint, and with 10 minutes to go, they absolutely won't make it to the end. Well, like you said earlier, I think they won't make it to the end. I think they'll be 2 or 3 laps short, I believe.
Just awful close. He's got a 32 second lead over Statler. I think that might do it.
Still going to be close. It's about a 15 to 20 second pit lane traverse for these cars. And then it's going to be another 5-6 seconds in the box, I believe. So it's going to be close. I still think the Athena car isn't going to jump them. But I can't say for certain, to be honest.
Great ride on board with Johnson. Still chasing Nichols. Now down through the Schumacher S. It's back up to 2 seconds, so maybe Murphy responding a little bit, or it could be some of the traffic. Because above it all, the 179 actually keeps going. Starts his 35th lap since his last refueling. There he is on screen now. Champion Motorsports with Christopher actually sharing with Chris Taylor. So a pair of Chris's running this one. And it's been so far so good. But they got to bring it home from here. Overshoots the corner into Haug Hook a little bit. Clearly experiencing the effects of a 3-hour race. Looks like 10th place might switch around. Brian Bennett, has he been gaining on Hutchison here? 53.7, 53.1. Hutchison, 53.6, 54.2. Yes, indeed. So, pulling him in, seeing if he can maybe get himself a top 10 to wrap things up. Looking very strong coming off the corner now. Does he have something for him? He looks to the inside. Hutchison doesn't defend. Heading into Haug Hook. We have seen cars, though, hold it around the outside and defend into Mercedes Arena. Bennett locking him up. Can he keep the car steady? Yes! That Black Ball Sector 5 Porsche gets 10th place, sending it in deep into the first corner.
It's lap 24, by the way, for the Texans FitzZ. I'm sorry, I can't say that. Fitz Motorsport Aries car. 24th lap. Now we have to see if he's going to pit this lap or not. And this is going to be the decider whether I look like a fool or not.
You know, Bill keeps complaining about choosing not numbered teams and give them something more interesting. My complaint is give us something pronounceable.
I mean, there's a T in there, right? I don't know how to say that.
Fitz-die, yeah. Well, to me, it looks like Fitzy, you know?
Exactly.
Like a nickname. But anyways, I digress. As Gareth now comes up to the last few corners. Is this it? Has he run it dry? Does he need to come in with 6 minutes left to go? And there it is. He's in the pit lane. Statler is currently coming through the Schumacher S.
My credibility remains. Now we got to see where they come out on track and how much fuel they have to put in the car for Gareth Messam.
Also, you can see there it's Nichols.
Oh, that's Murphy. And that means that Jordan Johnson is easily passed. So that moves Jordan up into second place. It is now a CMS Racing 1-2, but in reverse order of those numbers. And where is Statler? Statler's coming out of the final turn.
Oh, it's going to be close, but I think he's got him.
Mesham looks to be clear. Wow, it was tight. Would have been a lot nicer for Gareth if he hadn't have had that incident. It came down to 3 seconds. Doesn't get much closer.
But he came out right behind 2 GT cars, so that's going to hold him up for quite a bit. And Statler's making up quite a lot of time here. This battle is closing up here in the final laps.
Now, worth pointing out, the Athena team, I mean, even if they finish ahead of them, they're not going to take the championship. So I have to imagine there still is at least some please don't wreck each other things going on behind the scenes on these sister teams.
Well, I mean, you know, rule number 1 on motorsport is don't wreck your teammate. And rule number 2 is don't let your teammate wreck you. So it's a bit of A and B here. I think they're far enough apart that we won't have that issue. Oh, as it gets dangerous on the curbing there. But I'm not entirely sure.
And it looks like he was pretty quick through that traffic compared to Statler. So he pulls away. I'm keeping an eye on Christopher in the 179, who just started another lap. He's on lap 37 now. 4 more minutes. You also have to wonder, okay, where is the leaders in comparison to him? Are they going to lap him another time and keep him from doing an extra lap and help save him on that front? It does look like there is a shot that Mesham might catch him. Mesham, I believe, with 2 more laps to go. Oh, and down to the inside, very tight there, trying to find himself some space. That was the LMP2 of Steve Libretto, who actually isn't really fighting with anybody. He's got a minute to go up to Brox's and a 43-second gap back to Mueller, so doesn't really need to be making risky maneuvers.
And we were talking about them during the yellow flag, but the Switch It Toughest car is only 6 seconds behind the Athena LMP2. I think if the Topaz car hadn't had to fight his way through the traffic on the restart, he would have been ahead of the Athena car, in my opinion.
Most likely. Yeah, they are on the same strategy right now in terms of fuel. Pitted on the same lap. Ooh. Ooh. That was the X&B car that almost lost it and nearly took out Brox's. less than 4 minutes from the end. Not the sort of ending that they were looking for. I'm really glad that that did not go south. So we come back live. 2.5 minutes left to go. And Mesham is coming up to it. Yep, going to be 2 laps at the line here. Where is Christopher? Christopher's just up the road in the Mercedes Arena. Where is Walker as well compared to them? Walker's well behind, so Walker will not be lapped before this is all said and done, but he also has about a 20-second gap to Kurt Crum. I guess you could say that James walked away with this one.
That was the peak of the broadcast.
It always is.
Oh, that's even worse.
I trained him well. So, at this point, it might be done, all bar the shouting. Honestly, the only battle I can see on screen is between Grizzly Motorsports and the V-Apex Atlantis. This is for 15th in the GTE. So, not exactly the most dramatic, but it is for them. It's every position is important if you're a racer.
Especially if you're in 15th. There's nothing worse than running at the back of the pack alone, but it's not great when you're running for 15th with another car, but at least you can have a little bit of fun with it.
Ooh, might have a shot here as Banfield got a great run off of the final corner. No defense from Josh Wolf in the 107. Leaves the door open as they come down to the braking, though he is much stronger, and Wolf is going to fend him off. As that's happening, white flag waves for Gareth Mesham.
Just one more time around the Nurburgring here, and he's got the win. About 8 seconds back to his sister car and about another 9 seconds to third place. So he's pretty safe. Just needs to bring it on home.
At this point, oh, and somebody just came into pit lane. Well, that was Brox's.
Thomas.
Yeah. The Switch It car is in.
He had a minute gap to the Scuderia Monza car, so I think he's still going to retain the podium, but that is surprising.
Maybe they cut it just a little too close on the fuel. Oh no, it's a drive-through. It's a penalty. Well, it's a good thing that they had that lap to be able to do it, or else it would have been a time penalty, and that could have been disastrous.
Was it for that contact that we saw on the hairpin?
Don't think, did they actually make contact? I mean, well, it adds up over time, and it's a 20 incidents limit for the first one, and then every 10 beyond that they get another drive-through until they hit 40 and they're DQ'd. So could have been any of the first 2 drive-throughs that you can accrue. Meanwhile, without a drive-through, just stopping by pit lane for his visits down to the crew, Gareth Mesham, the handy gap, is looking at the checkered flag in just a few moments. The 59 not only takes the win in today's race, but he takes the championship. Gareth Mesham and his teammate Jack Stiles are going to win both the race and the championship in the LMP2s. Just behind them, CMSRacing.com, team number 2, with Christopher Camiller, is coming through, and he did make it without stopping again. What a run for this car. Victory for the Team 2 CMS Racing team. And we'll have to figure out if this gives them the championship, as up next it's going to be James Walker who will win in the SimTV Bombshell Racing team.
I believe this was the story of the race. We were all expecting the Calvert Dynamics Bombshell Racing team to take the win after being so dominant, but the SimTV Bombshell Racing team pitted during the yellow flag and stunned everybody with their pit strategy.
It all worked out in the end, winning this race, even though they're not going to take the championship, as James Walker and Eric Mickey pulled a masterstroke. that is going to be it, not for our coverage, but for the race itself. Stick around because we have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews coming your way. Welcome back to Nurburgring, and after the final round of the Majors Team Endurance Challenge, we watched Texas Fitstye Motorsports Aries take it home with the victory after starting on the front row, overtaking their team who started in front of them. The Texas Fitstye Motorsports Athena car still finished second, so nice 1-2 for them. Switch at Topaz, who we thought maybe had pulled something over the others, didn't quite have what they thought underneath him. Still got a third in a podium today. Sudaria Monza was in fourth, last one on the lead lap with X&B Race Design, getting a penalty late in the race and finishing fifth, taking us to the GTEs here, Si.
Well, the winner in the GTE race was the SimTV Bombshell Racing Team, executing a brilliant pit strategy. But the Calvert Dynamics Bombshell Racing Team in second will take home the championship. In third, we have the Mach 1 Esports. In fourth, we have the TechSense Fitstye Motorsport Hades team. In fifth, we had the Black Tree Race Crew. Sixth, we had the Evolve SimSports Titanium. Middle Finger Racing is your seventh place finisher, followed by Elite West USA, Evolve SimSports SPB, following their unfortunate disconnection in the middle of the race. Good recovery for them. In 10th place, we had the Sector 5 Black Ball team. In 11th, the Hard Promises Racing. And following them, Speedworks Racing, Kinetic Racing MTEC, Sector 5 Wild Blue Yonder, the Apex Racing Group Atlantis, Grizzly Motorsports by TFR Lab, and Howler Racing.
And then, finally, the GT4s. Christopher Schmelier, your winner of the race, but the winner of the championship was the CMSRacing.com Team 1, piloted by Jordan Johnson at the end of the race there. In third at the end was the Grid Life iRacers Bombshell Racing Team, piloted by Murphy Nichols after an unfortunate hardware failure took them out of the lead early on. John D. Nichols in the other Grid Life iRacers car was 26th. Robert Gamble finished the day in the Sector 8 car. And last on the field, the only DNF of the race was the Mad Sim Racing number 282, with Patrick Stein behind the wheel at the end of the race.
And it looks like we have our winners in the LMP2s ready to talk to us. Now, we felt kind of nervy about whether or not that strategy was going to get you back in the lead or even give you the win. But did you guys feel confident with that last splash and dash that you'd be able to exit before your teammates had passed you?
It was a bit touch and go, I'll admit that. Obviously, the damage in the first stint for me is while we were off sync with everyone else. So it's just a case of we just had to push absolutely flat out to do it. Gareth, he only got the call up last night that he needed to do it. Unfortunately, Cam couldn't make it today, so Gareth got a late call up, did his first laps about 9 hours ago. And I think he'd probably done about 30 laps practice when he jumped in the car, so it took him about 5 laps. But he did an absolutely fantastic job for that final stint, really pushed the thing to the limit. And yeah, the reason why we won this race at the end of the day is because he could wring that thing out and get us to a point where we could safely get out, even if it is only by 2 seconds, and have that splash and dash.
Well, that makes it all the more impressive. I have to ask, though, Gareth, when you had the incident coming through the hairpin and you lost a whole bunch of time, was there plenty of blue language inside that cockpit?
For me, no. I was quite calm, collective. Everyone gets involved in incidents all the time. Jack was a bit sweary. Another guy went in there to keep cheering us on, but I was calm. I knew to get back on track, nice and easy. Then just get back into rhythm. Then once Jack calmed down, just got back into routine and just forgot about it. Before we went up the Schumacher S's, we just forgot about it. And then we just got our head down and went again, tried to build the gap again, just head down.
This was the first season that the majors have run this series, and we certainly enjoyed it. It was fascinating and always fun to get to cover some endurance stuff. Would you guys like to return if they bring it back?
I definitely am up for a return. I've got a championship to defend at the end of the day. I know Cam will be as well. Not sure about you, Gareth, but I'm 100% in for another crack at this. It's been so much fun. Stressful at times, very hard at times as well. The 2 hour 10 minute stint I did today is one of the hardest stints I've ever done in sim racing, and I've been doing this now for 5 years, and that's the hardest I've ever had to push in a race ever. And getting out of the car, getting the VR headset off, it was a relief to say the least. But yeah, I'd definitely be up for coming back. Be interesting to see what changes are made over the off season and into the next season.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be the first one to do a Nico Rosberg and run away after a championship. I'll defend it until the very last lap or very last second. But the season's all down to Jack. Jack's been quick out of the box. He's put the time and effort in. When I've been called up or turned up, I've just bit of practice and just let Jack do all the hard work, and I just keep on the track and keep it straight and narrow. So it's all down to Jack. It's all Jack's doing.
Well, again, congratulations, guys. It was impressive in many ways throughout the season. Hopefully, we will see you back, as we just got confirmation that it will be coming in September. That was our winners, the Texans Fitstye Motorsports Aries team. And up next, Andra has caught up with the SimTV Bombshell Racing guys, Walker and I believe Mickey.
Welcome to the booth, guys, and congratulations on your win. Tell us about your race. We saw you took an alternate pit strategy during the one and only caution we had. Talk us through your decision making.
Well, the safety cars really determine, I think, how the strategy plays out. And at Road Atlanta, another team pitted under a safety car, took tires, and later in the race just fueled, and they beat their other car, Kurt and Tom. So we figured we'd play that same strategy, and it looks like it worked for us in the end.
So as teammates, were you telling each other about the strategies you were doing? Were you covering each other's weaknesses in terms of pace and in terms of strategy making?
Not really. I think we were more worried about the cars that they were racing, and we saw them pit, so we covered them off the Texans car. I think that was when we were racing at the time, and just to make sure they didn't get ahead of our sister car.
Yeah, we raced pretty much our own races. We didn't really communicate between the two cars on strategy, just kind of letting everything kind of play out. And then things just kind of started falling a certain way, and we could be a little bit more aggressive with doing something different under that yellow, and it just kind of happened to work out for us to get the race win, but super happy for them to get that championship.
Of course. Well, is there anybody you guys want to thank before you head on out?
I just got to thank, as a series organizer, I got to thank Mike and all of the competition committee for working with us on getting the season underway and complete. You guys for being on board to broadcast it. For my own team, I got to thank, obviously, James and Kurt and Tom and everybody who showed up and raced with us. Murphy down in GT4. Sucks that they had such a bad day and couldn't come away with that championship. But SimTV been on board with us, Grid Life, Calvert Dynamics. We got to thank all of them. But again, as series organizer, I'm really excited about what we have in the works for season 2, and I think it's only going to get bigger and better from here.
Of course. Well, thank you guys so much for coming to the booth, and congratulations on your win again.
Believe now we have Joey Tebben talking to CMS Racing Team 2, our winner here today.
Indeed, as they join us in the booth, we got 2 Chris's on the winning team, CMSRacing.com Team 2. It seemed like a couple of your opponents ran into trouble early in the race, and you guys were the ones to hang on. How did you pull this win off after 3 hours?
Magic. That's really all it came down to. Chris drove hella good, and I can't say anything how proud I am of doing 40-something laps.
Yeah, we did 12 extra laps than the normal stint. Some of those laps are under caution, but we crossed the line with 0.1 gallons of fuel.
We were watching at the end of the race. We thought you guys were going to come in for an extra stop, and we were amazed that you could make such a long stint work. What were you doing in the car to save the amount of fuel you needed to actually bring it to the end?
Well, this car is automatic, so it doesn't have a clutch. So let off just before the corners really early, shift all the way up to 7th, and coast as much as I can. And it just worked out, just barely.
It clearly did, and I guess the unique thing about the series is that we have GT4 cars and LMP2 cars on the same track. It's an interesting dynamic. How do you stay out of the way from a car that's just so much faster than you?
Well, you really can't. It's just so much faster. You just you're on your line, and it's up to LMP2 guys to get by you safely. You can see them going by, and you just don't turn in.
Indeed. All right. Well, congrats for your victory. You have anyone extra you want to thank for this today?
Thanks to the CMS guys for organizing our 2 teams, and also want to say thanks to the Majors guys putting the MTEC series on. It was a lot of fun.
All righty, we just had the 2 Chris's, and next up we go to P2 in GTE with Kurt Crum and Tom O'Gorman.
Indeed, missing out on the victory today, but certainly we're up on the point for much of the race. In fact, guys, it looked like you had a ton of pressure from that Evolve SimSport SPB team for most of that first stint.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun opening the race up and doing my best to not put ourselves in championship predicaments, but also, have a good race. And it was really clean with Andrew Waring to have that happen with as intensely as we were racing and not lose a lot of time to the cars we were around. And obviously neither of us ended up in the wall as 2 to each other. So that was great. And then my main goal was just make sure Kurt had a clean car.
Now, obviously, it looks like you got a little bit outsmarted in terms of the fuel strategy. Do you feel like if things were a little bit different, maybe you could have taken it to Walker and Mickey, or is that really the max that you had today?
Yeah, I think we might play things a little differently if we weren't mainly racing for the championship, but I mean, they had a real strong race. They were quick, so it's tough to say. But I think we might have had a chance.
Yeah, it's so hard to give up the track position once you have it, and I think we knew we were picking one of two evils, and we weren't sure which was the worst of two by not pitting and taking tires at that point in time. But they ran a flawless race just as much as we did, minus the first, however many seconds we had at the beginning of the race. So for them to come swing that with the strategy call was really smart and well played.
Now, this has been quite frantic at times in this series with such disparate speeds between these cars. Would you like to see the series stick with the three classes that we had this season, or would you like to see a change when they come back in September?
Yeah, I'd like to see the quartering speeds brought a little bit more similar between the classes. But, it's certainly been interesting. Not a risk of being boring with this class miss, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, it definitely kept us on our toes, especially in the early races. Just couldn't look away with so much happening. Again, congratulations on the championship and on a podium today, sirs. I believe up next we have our champions in the GT4s ready to talk to Joey Tebben.
Indeed, only second place on track, but first place in the championship, Jordan Johnson and Brett Stevens. First of all, congratulations on the championship.
Thank you. It was an emotional roller coaster, especially that last race. But I mean, we recovered from honestly what we can only say was a dismal first round, and just kept our heads down for the entire championship. And a couple of things rolled in our favor, and I need a nap after that, but it definitely was rewarding, I guess is the best word.
I think we all need a nap. There's 3 hours of excitement up here as well. What we noticed throughout the race is that it was almost a race of attrition, even though you all finished. It came down to who ran into trouble and who didn't. Even though you guys got punted, you still finished second. Was that just down to, you think, your consistency across the whole of the race?
Well, coming towards the end of the race, right before Grid Life had to pit, and we were 0.4 seconds away from them, so I think we had the pace even after getting punted there. Their first driver just drove an absolutely immaculate stint. Like he pulled away, and without that mechanical failure he had or whatever it was, we would have probably even pulled the gap even further. But I think it was a mix of luck and a good bit of skill. We put in the time, and we're showing really strong lap times, but I think the dice rolled in our favor today, and that's kind of what we have to thank.
All right, well, again, congrats on the championship. Great job this season, and we'll see you next time. And to take us out, let's go back to Joe Peak.
I believe we've got Cy Andra actually talking to our GTE third place finishers and the Mach 1 esports team.
Yep, we have Tom Huggan, Jesse Butler, and I believe Kircher is also part of the team. Welcome to the booth, guys, and congrats on your podium. Qualified fifth, finished third. Describe your race for us here.
Wasn't too bad, actually. Yeah, we a little bit struggled in qualifying, but I think our one lap pace in the actual race, our race pace was pretty good. We seemed to, once we got into a bit of the clear traffic, once I got past, I think it was Eric, we showed a bit of pace then. And then once we got past, I think it was Aaron Stanley. Once we got past those two, we seemed to show a little bit more pace and whatnot, and just try to let the race fall into our hands, but unfortunately wasn't able to. But took a couple of risks with strategy, try and get that win, but just didn't work out for us.
Well, we saw it was a Corvette 1-2, and you were the only guys in the top. Well, there was one other Porsche in the top 5, but I would say you were definitely the minority in terms of car choice. How did that affect your decision making and how the race played out? Was it more or less difficult to pass people in the Porsche?
I think from me personally, I seem to be a lot quicker through the Mercedes-Benz stand section, which I got both my moves done in through there. It felt really good, and the only place where I felt like I was really losing any time was onto the back straight, which I think the Corvettes were a bit quicker out of that right-hander. Other than that, I think it was pretty good, but it's a really difficult track to even get passes done on this track at the best times.
Absolutely, we saw both your dives. I wouldn't say dives, both your opportunistic overtakes on the on that final left-hander in the Mercedes complex there. Well, I think if my math is done right, I think you guys have locked up third in the championship as well. I think you've jumped the Tensex Hades team. Were you guys aware of that?
We knew the points were pretty close. I think we probably needed a win to secure top 3, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure where we sit now.
I'd like to make a correction. It was the Evolve SimSports Titanium car that you guys jumped, not the Hades car. The Hades car finished one position behind you. But yeah, congrats on the unofficial podium for the time being. And is there anybody you guys want to thank before you head on out?
I'd like to thank Mac1 Esports. I'd also like to thank Tommy and Henry. Henry had to duck out pretty quick, but I'd like to thank those two guys for joining me in this series. I'd like to thank our sponsors. We've got MLA Holdings. They do a fantastic job with forklifts and everything like that. And Race Circuit Art. Would like to thank those two guys.
Well, congrats on your podium, guys. Hope to see you back when the series restarts.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
That was third place finishers Mach1 Esports, who took third in the GTE class here in the finale. But that's going to wrap us up. A big thank you to not only the majors for bringing us on for this first season of coverage, but also to all the teams coming and talking to us after what seems like a grueling race out here. Thanks goes out to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen to find out how to get a hold of more of her great work at her Bandcamp. Thanks to the team today, Cy, Joey, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storeenvy.com. Get a link in the description below. Don't forget to if I can get the words out, don't forget to head on over to our YouTube description and subscribe while you got the chance before I close things down by messing up too many words. And don't miss a moment here on GSRC. We've got upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar, including in just a few moments' time, the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series has their season finale at New Smyrna at 9 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.